The story begins with Tae-su standing before a wrecked car, surrounded by the littered corpses of the undead. The hammer in his hand was caked with blood, and the air was eerily silent. He let out an exhausted breath. He reached out to open the trunk. A ghoul lunged out. This ghoul had been handcuffed. As Tae-su opened the trunk wider, the ghoul trembled. His gaze softened. Then, his eyes widened with hope at what he saw. From between the ghoul's legs came the cry of a baby. He picked the baby up. It sobbed in his arms. The man wept. A small life was born in the midst of a chaotic world. Time passed, and Tae-su's daughter grew up. Tae-su had been having that same dream for a long time when his daughter called for him to wake up. Tae-su wearily asked what was wrong. The little girl pointed out the window. "Dad. Look, the ghouls are back again. 10 years ago, the apocalypse began. A virus turned many people into ghouls, and anyone bitten would become one of the living dead. People called this monstrous disease the Ghoul Plague. From that moment on, the world Tae-su once knew vanished." At his daughter's words, he stepped outside to where the ghouls were trying to break into their house. He looked at them, and they looked at him. The ghouls let out a loud roar as Tae-su's hammer came crashing down. Tae-su and his daughter, Nabi, had been living in the mountains for 10 years. After killing a few ghouls, Tae-su told Nabi to stay home while he went out to check the traps. When the girl didn't answer, he glanced over at her. Nabi had already changed her clothes, wanting to go with her father. She even boasted to her dad that she was strong and all grown up. But the stick in Nabi's hand was pulled back. She knew for sure that she wouldn't be allowed to go out again. Tae-su said sternly, "I've told you before. What's it like outside?" Nabi desperately wanted to go out, her sadness written all over her face. She couldn't bring herself to face her father. He always repeated the same thing: all the humans were dead, and the outside world was full of ghouls. So she was absolutely not to go anywhere. Nabi didn't dare to disobey. For 10 years, he had told her that this was the safest place, and going outside would only be a burden. He set the shovel aside in a corner. Then he left, leaving Nabi at home, telling her to wait for him to bring back some meat for them to grill. Disappointed, Nabi stood still with her head bowed for a long time. As Tae-su walked, his mind was troubled. He knew it wasn't right to keep her from going anywhere, but to protect Nabi, he had no other choice. Suddenly, Tae-su spotted something ahead. It was a wild boar caught in a trap. He cut the rope. By chance, he noticed something else. There were clear human shoe prints here. In the apocalypse, humans were even more terrifying than ghouls. The moment he saw the footprints nearby, Tae-su reacted instantly. To Tae-su, Nabi was his everything. So he was determined to eliminate any threat, no matter how small. Nabi was at home, drawing pictures. She was completely bored with this activity. It seemed she saw something. A beautiful butterfly. Nabi gasped, excited to see the butterfly. She chased after it, determined to catch it. Nabi almost touched the butterfly. She ran all the way to the iron gate. The butterfly flew away, and Nabi, trapped here, could no longer follow it. Suddenly, the footsteps of a stranger approached. A young man happened upon Nabi and Tae-su's residence. He thought he was done for, but when he looked up, he was filled with hope. "I'm lost. Are there any adults here?" Tae-su was running home at full speed. Looking at the shoe prints, Tae-su guessed the person was a man. He figured the man must have passed by just 20 or 30 minutes ago. That meant Nabi could be in danger at home. At the same time, a horde of ghouls burst out from the bushes. They had been starving for a long time and pushed each other aside to attack Tae-su. But in no time, they were reduced to minced meat. Eyes, noses, and mouths flew everywhere. Tae-su took down the first few, but several more continued to pursue him relentlessly. He was in a hurry, and these things were blocking his way. Tae-su cursed. He turned around, hammer in hand. Tae-su was in a rush and had no more time for them. He decided to wipe them all out with one powerful blow. Red blood from the ghouls splattered all over him. Back at the house, Nabi was meeting a stranger for the first time. She couldn't believe her eyes. It was a person. She kept asking, "Are you a human?" The young man asked back, "If I'm not a human, what am I?" Nabi insisted. "My dad said all the humans are dead. He calmly asked Nabi if he looked like a ghoul. The girl stammered. No. He then said, "But why would you believe that? Have you never met another human?" His words struck a chord with the little girl. The young man was surprised that what he said was true. Huh. So it's true. Nabi sadly nodded her head. She explained that she had only ever been here. And her dad said the outside was full of ghouls and she would die if she went out. So she was never allowed to leave. Her words left the young man stunned. He explained that what her dad said wasn't wrong. But it wasn't entirely right either. There were still ghouls outside. But there were also safe zones where they couldn't attack. He said that the place he lived was called Paradise, an isolated island where people still lived normally. Then he excitedly told her that life was now back to how it was 10 years ago. For a little girl like Nabi, who longed to see the world. That was a great hope. But she only dared to ask softly. Really? As she asked. She looked around at the house she lived in. Surrounded by barbed wire and deadly traps, tears welled up in Nabi's eyes. Really? Is it really true I want to go too? Can I go there? The young man looked at Nabi with a mix of pity and unease. Then he reassured her. Of course you can go. Let me explain to your dad. He's probably been in the forest so long he doesn't know what the world is like now. Nabi cried as she said her dad wasn't home. He'd gone hunting and she didn't know when he'd be back. The young man reached for the iron fence. Then he made a shady suggestion. Well, can I come in for a bit? He said there were too many ghouls outside, and he wanted to come inside for safety. Nabi hesitated, unsure if she should open the gate for a stranger. He maintained a friendly expression as he looked at her. But even if she wanted to, Nabi couldn't open the gate because Tae-su had the key. He noticed something nearby. A pair of bolt cutters. He decisively cut the barbed wire fence. Nabi screamed. What are you doing? He was in a hurry, afraid the ghouls would come and kill him. So he had to act to get inside at all costs. Nabi tried to stop the young man. But he wouldn't listen. She was afraid that when her dad came back and saw this, he would kill him. The young man, however, thought that once Nabi's dad returned, all three of them would go to Paradise Island. Suddenly, Nabi stopped screaming. Tae-su's axe came swinging. Nabi had tried to scream, "Dad," but all she got in response was a splash of red across her face, and then came her terrified scream. It was the first time Nabi had seen her father raise a hand against another human. There was nothing she could do. She was Tae-su's most precious treasure. Ever since Nabi's mother died, he had sworn to protect his daughter at all costs. The young man was knocked unconscious by a single blow from the axe. And so, to protect his daughter, he had attacked another human being. Tae-su didn't care who it was. Anything that came near Nabi was a threat. The young man's vision slowly returned. He saw Tae-su's feet as he was being buried. He had tied the young man to a tree while he dug a hole. The man trembled and begged for his life. Tae-su gave the young man two choices: a quick death by being buried in the hole, or a painful one. He sobbed, never imagining he'd end up in this situation. Tae-su interrogated him and learned that he had gotten lost and found this place because of the boar trap. He then asked what the man's intentions were for trying to enter the house. The man said he had no ill intentions. He just wanted to rest and hide from the ghouls. Tae-su watched his every move to see if he was lying. After hearing him out, he agreed it was all a misunderstanding. But he still didn't calm down. Tae-su wanted to pull out a few of the young man's teeth to find out why he was so desperate to get into the house. Tae-su did it for real. The sharp point of the knife dug in deep. The young man's blood-curdling scream echoed through the forest. Nabi collapsed to the ground. The first human she had ever seen was being harmed by her own father. Nabi looked at the cutlock outside. She could open the gate. Tae-su had left with the man but forgot to lock the gate. For the first time, Nabi saw the gate open. She had the thought of going outside for just a little bit. The butterfly from before reappeared. It was as if it was telling her to go out and see the world. Back where Tae-su was, the young man had been brutally tortured. He begged for his life and for them to pretend nothing had happened. He raised his hammer. "What are you talking about? You've already seen everything. So how can we pretend nothing happened?" The young man quickly pleaded. "Wait. Please listen to what I have to say. I heard you haven't come down from the mountain in years. Don't be like this. Come down with me." He told him about the place he lived. An isolated island where people lived normally, where ghouls couldn't reach. That's why everyone called it paradise. He also said that he was only out here for work, while everyone else lived there normally. He promised to take Tae-su there. He lowered the hammer in his hand. Seeing his chance, the man pressed on with a psychological attack. Are you planning to let that girl live like this forever? How long are you going to keep her locked up? 30 years? 50 years? What if you die? That would be so unfortunate for her. Children should live with other children. In paradise. There are many kids her age. Then he looked at him with hopeful eyes. Please. Come down the mountain with me. Tae-su understood everything he said. He remained silent. His eyes glanced down. Then he said, Paradise. Huh. It would be nice if such a place existed. His next words drove the young man to near despair. What you're saying is nearly impossible. You understand. In this world, you shouldn't trust anyone. This time, I'll send you on your way. It won't hurt. Bam! The axe came crashing down. Tae-su's eyes widened with a strange expression. After a moment of struggle, Nabi finally managed to open the gate. And a ghoul charged at her. Nabi slammed the gate shut, trapping the ghoul's hand. She choked back a sob. The situation was too dangerous. Nabi's strength wasn't enough to hold on. The ghoul's hand pushed deeper. It lunged forward with a piercing shriek, terrified. Nabi bowed her head and closed her eyes, ready to die. But nothing happened to her. She slowly opened her eyes. The ghoul in front of her had her father's axe embedded in its head. It then collapsed to the ground. Motionless. Tae-su was furious that Nabi had disobeyed him. Who gave you permission to disobey me? He yelled. His loud voice startling Nabi. He walked closer and asked if she was hurt. Tae-su tried to remain calm with the child. Do you have any idea how close you were to dying? How many more times do I have to tell you? Nabi's eyes filled with tears as she asked her father. Where's the person from before? He was taken aback. What? The girl looked at her father's axe. Covered in what looked like ketchup, tears streamed down her face. That person, is he really dead? Back with the young man. Tae-su hadn't struck him down yet. He had brought the axe down on the tree instead. The man had narrowly escaped death and was filled with resentment. He struggled to reach a nearby dagger with his foot. Finally, he managed to touch it. Tae-su was still talking to a very shocked Nabi. Do you know what the most frightening thing in this world is? Ghouls that eat people. No. It's not them. It's omens. Ghouls can't deceive us. But humans can. You believe the words of someone you just met today. He could have been infected and was deliberately trying to run in here. Tae-su even threatened that if Nabi tried to run away, he would tie her up. He then turned to leave. But Nabi mustered all her courage and spoke. This is the first time I've seen someone other than you. Dad, why did you say all the humans outside were dead? And only ghouls were left? She repeated what the young man had told her about the place called Paradise. For the first time, Nabi yelled directly at her father. If that's true, then you've been lying to me too. Her words left Tae-su momentarily speechless. He just walked away and said, You still don't understand how terrible it is out there. Then he firmly locked the gate with a new lock. This was Tae-su's way of protecting his daughter. For her sake, he wouldn't take any chances. When Tae-su returned to the tree, his face turned grim. The young man had escaped. He looked to his right when he heard a noise. Tae-su spotted him running away. He gave chase. The young man ran for his life. It seemed he had a plan. His face was now a mix of anxiety and panic. Just as he had planned, Tae-su fell into a trap. The same trap he used to catch animals now had him hanging upside down. In a flash, a knife lunged towards Tae-su. The young man shoved a whole carrot into the side of his face. It wasn't until evening. Nabi was so scared she could only cower in her room. As for Tae-su, he was now in a vulnerable position. The young man regretted that if Tae-su hadn't dodged in time, he would have finished him off. He knew Tae-su was familiar with this area, so, before Tae-su returned, he had secretly moved the traps, but all Tae-su cared about was his daughter. He threatened the young man not to touch a single hair on Nabi's head. He replied, Sorry to disappoint you, but your daughter is someone I must have. These words drove Tae-su mad, so mad that he coughed up blood. His hands went limp. This young man had also been through countless things out there, so he understood perfectly why Tae-su wanted to kill him. He told Tae-su to understand his situation, that there was no other way, because in this world, if you don't kill others, They will kill you first. He picked up the hammer. He prepared to bring it down and finish Tae-su off. Tae-su had nearly passed out. The young man said in a low voice, "You should just die. It's probably for the best. Rest in peace." The axe was about to swing. He struck a blow at the suspended Tae-su. Ketchup splattered onto the grass. 10 years ago, the day Nabi was born, Tae-su had tied up his wife because she was infected with the Ghoul Plague. She didn't want to give birth to the baby, afraid it would also be a ghoul, but Tae-su didn't believe it. He stubbornly kept his wife and made her give birth. He said he had medicine and that the child would be born healthy. Seeing her husband's efforts and his refusal to give up on their child until the very end, she seriously told Tae-su that he was a father now and needed to think realistically. She said that in his future, she would no longer be by his side. But if the baby was born completely normal, he should live happily for her as well. Tae-su broke down in tears and promised. Outside, the ghouls were relentlessly causing a commotion. They were trying to break into the car. Tae-su's wife was worried. Even if the baby was born normal, could it survive in this harsh world? She was afraid it would resent her for giving birth to it. She was terrified, not of death or pain, but of her daughter growing up to constantly suffer in that horrible world. If that was the case, it would be better to die together and not have to endure the pain. Tears streamed down her face. Tae-su rushed forward and hugged his wife tightly. He swore he would not let their child be harmed. He vowed to trade everything to protect their child. No matter what happened, he would make their child happy. Back in the present, as Tae-su was captured, a ghoul attacked him. He woke up with a start. His quick reflexes allowed him to dodge the surprise attack. He still had a dagger in his hand. Tae-su used the momentum of the swinging rope. Then he gave the ghoul a loving stab in the eye socket. It collapsed to the ground. Tae-su didn't know how long he had been unconscious. He had to find his daughter. Tae-su cut the rope. He fell to the ground. Then he looked ahead. His axe was still nearby. A horde of ghouls swarmed towards him. He reached for the axe. He chopped them down one by one. Nabi was probably waiting for him. So Tae-su had to get back home at all costs. He had to protect her, because of the promise he made to his wife. And because he was a father. The scene shifts back to the father and daughter's house. Nabi had fallen asleep. She had just opened her eyes. It was the young man who had run in and woken her up. The girl was dazed, wondering why he was here and asking if his wound was okay. He said the blood had dried. When Nabi saw her father's hat on his head, she asked, "Where's my dad?" The young man trembled. Nabi feared something bad had happened. He made up a story. "Just now, we were talking, and he apologized for hitting me. On his way back to the house, he was bitten by a ghoul." Hearing this, Nabi went silent, as if she couldn't believe it. "You're not kidding. Are you? How could Dad?" But seeing the tears on his face, Nabi had no choice but to believe it was true. She screamed, "No. That's a lie. You must have seen it wrong. It's not true." Nabi got out of bed and said she wanted to find her father. "I'll go find him myself." "Where is my dad?" She cried out for her father and rushed off. But he grabbed Nabi's hand. In the room, Nabi struggled, wanting to run outside to find Tae-su. The young man told Nabi straight, "It was all your father's greed. Keeping you in the mountains and not letting you out was just for his own safety." He relayed her father's final words to Nabi. He said he was sorry for raising you like this. And one more thing. He took the hat off his head. He gave it to Nabi. He said Tae-su had told him to give her this hat. Nabi cried, unaware that it was all a lie. He reminded her of Paradise Island, a place with a city and lots of delicious food. There were friends her age there. He promised to let her see the world. At that moment, Tae-su had returned home. The house was dark. It was still raining heavily. Earlier, Nabi and the young man had packed their things, ready to leave. Nabi was sad, but she really had no other choice. He saw her expression and comforted her. "Don't worry. Isn't this the moment you've been dreaming of? You're not trapped anymore. The outside world is more wonderful than you can imagine." Tae-su rushed up the stairs. He opened the door from the outside, while the young man opened it from the inside. The two of them had left the house at dawn. Tae-su returned late at night. He was stunned when he looked inside. His beloved Nabi was truly gone. The house was no longer warm without her presence. Tae-su quietly walked to the door. He slowly stepped out into the yard to observe, but the rain had washed away all the footprints. Tae-su was filled with rage. He had no idea which direction his daughter had gone. The butterfly from before appeared again. It flew close to the hat on Nabi's head. She couldn't stop looking at it. The young man introduced himself as Baek Si-hyun, 17 years old. Nabi also introduced herself and said she was 10. Hearing this, he asked, "So you were born after the ghoul outbreak?" Nabi said she was born after the outbreak and that her father had taken her up to the mountains. Si-hyun then understood. Nabi was still worried about Si-hyun's wound, but he said it was fine. He told Nabi that the rain was the best condition to avoid ghouls, so they had to leave during the night. Nabi was both worried and scared as she trailed behind him. The next morning, Tae-su had searched for his daughter all night. He then decided to go home since he couldn't find any trace of her. The rain had washed the bloodstains from his body. Suddenly, he heard the cry of a child. Tae-su remembered the first time he carried Nabi into the mountains. Now, his mind was filled with images of his daughter. He remembered every moment of teaching her to speak. The first time she could clearly say the word, "Dad." Tae-su was moved to tears, his heart pounding with overwhelming happiness. But now, he was all alone. The house they lived in was filled with memories. Nabi had lived with her father and grown taller each day. He had witnessed every moment of her growing up. Little by little, he pulled open the door to the house. In the corner of the house, he remembered taking a picture of her. Tae-su's hand trembled. He was in agony over losing his daughter. His damaged eye bled profusely. On the table was a picture of Nabi, now stained with her father's tears of blood. The image of his wife giving birth to Nabi constantly appeared in Tae-su's mind. He blamed himself for not keeping his promise to his wife to protect their child. First, to get Nabi back, Tae-su had to treat his own wounds. Then he put on a set of professional gear and left. Before he could fulfill his promise to his wife, Tae-su now had to leave the mountain to save his daughter. He left the house behind, the place where he had painstakingly built a system of sturdy traps to keep the ghouls away. About an hour's walk from the cabin, there was a temple that had been abandoned since the outbreak. Tae-su knew of this place, but he still wanted to check if his daughter was there. The abandoned temple had incense burning. Smelling the incense, Tae-su was startled. He suspected that the young man had brought his daughter here. He immediately broke down the temple door. Looking inside, he saw the figures of two people paying respects to a Buddha statue. They panicked when they saw the temple door being destroyed. He showed them the picture of Nabi. The two monks in the temple didn't know the little girl. They apologized for not being able to help, but Tae-su was suspicious. He looked up at the blood-stained temple door, thinking they might be hiding the young man and Nabi inside. He walked towards it. He kicked the door open, despite the two monks trying to stop him, but there was no sign of Nabi in any corner. He then stormed into the main hall and opened the doors to check. Inside, there was only a Buddha statue with carefully lit incense. No one else was there. The two monks ran in, annoyed with Tae-su. "We already told you no one's here. Why are you so stubborn?" Tae-su said nothing. As the two monks ran to the door, Tae-su told them, "I've been here before. Every time I came, there were no signs of human presence." He gripped his axe tightly. Tae-su was certain these two were fake monks. He slammed the axe down on the floor, causing it to crack. Tae-su asked, "Who are you? Why are you here pretending to be monks?" They secretly pulled out knives from behind their backs. The two bald men exchanged a look, signaling each other. Tae-su gritted his teeth. He knew they wouldn't confess easily. One of them yelled, "You insolent bastard!" The other one suddenly shouted, "Wait." He bowed his head low and reminded him, "The Buddha is watching." Then, regaining his composure, he said, "Please give us a moment to explain. It was fate that brought us together here." He began his story. A month ago, he and a group of people came to the temple, but not long after, ghouls started to cause trouble. Having followed some people who were out looking for food, only these two fake monks, a man and a woman, were left. At that moment, they thought they were about to die. A ghoul entered. It was one of the people who had been staying with them at the temple and had gotten infected. As the ghoul approached, the two of them had nowhere to run. They had never prayed to anyone in their lives. But at that moment, the only thing they could cling to was the Buddha statue behind them. Only when standing before the Buddha statue at that moment did they truly find enlightenment. "Please give us a chance to live. We will dedicate our lives to serving the Buddha." And in that instant, the ghoul smelled the incense. It stopped moving. It suddenly changed direction. The ghoul had actually left the temple. It was so close to us. But it left and never came back. That was the compassion of the Buddha. After that, the two of them vowed to shave their heads, continue their practice, and protect the temple. Tae-su found this story ridiculous. They stubbornly clung to their faith, saying that only those who were truly enlightened could understand. The fake female monk beat her chest, saying she had been enlightened and understood that compassion. It was all thanks to this incense. In Buddhist teachings, incense represents purification and the warding off of evil spirits. Meaning, this scent repels evil energy, making it impossible for ghouls to detect humans. The more Tae-su listened to this reasoning, the more bored he became. He knew well that once ghouls caught the scent of humans, they would hunt them to the ends of the earth, even if it meant being torn to shreds. As long as they could still move, Tae-su guessed that the reason it ignored the two of them was that the scent of the incense had disrupted its sense of smell. So, the fact that they were still alive was just a matter of luck and coincidence. Tae-su told them the truth, but they refused to believe it and now pulled out their knives. The skinny one was so angry he wanted to take Tae-su out first. A carrot-like object lunged forward, but his hand was blocked by Tae-su. He used his axe to deliver a blow that twisted the man's entire body. He was kicked out into the courtyard. Nearly all his teeth were knocked out. Tae-su said, "Enough with the nonsense. I don't give a damn what you believe. I'm leaving." Their faith had been insulted, so they started to get aggressive. The skinny monk inside looked out, his eyes gradually filling with fear. Right next to the fat monk, a ghoul appeared. Before he could run, a chunk was bitten out of his shoulder. The man screamed like a stuck pig. Inside, the remaining one's face turned pale, his legs trembling. He couldn't believe ghouls had made it this far in. Weren't they afraid of the Buddha? He squeezed his eyes shut. When he looked over, he saw the incense burner had been knocked over. He assumed the ghouls had come because the incense had gone out. He immediately apologized to the Buddha and lit a new stick of incense. Tae-su tightened his grip on the axe. He frowned at the ghoul. After finishing off one monk, the ghoul entered. Immediately after, that monk also turned into a ghoul and charged into the main hall. Its face, craving human flesh, lunged forward. Tae-su didn't hesitate to step forward. He quickly destroyed the command center of the one in front. He stomped hard on the ghoul. Then he kicked it hard into the ones behind it. The remaining monk watched the chaotic scene. He turned pale. This time, he saw it again. It was the same ghoul that had turned away before. He immediately pulled out an incense stick to ward it off. He even yelled, "You filthy thing, this is a place of worship for the Buddha." He pointed the incense stick at the ghoul and tried to shoo it away. The ghoul's whole body suddenly trembled. The monk nervously watched its reaction. When he saw the ghoul stop, he laughed out loud with joy. Now, the miracle of Buddhism was truth to him. He even held the incense stick and proactively approached the ghoul. The ghoul's foot hit the step. It tripped and then crawled up step by step. The monk's face began to turn pale. The ghoul looked up at him, over where Tae-su was. He had killed all the ghouls. He then turned back to find the surviving monk. The temple gate was quiet. Not a sound to be heard. Inside, fresh blood dripped everywhere. He trembled, still holding the incense. Tae-su slowly walked into the main hall. The ghoul, smelling a human, stood up. It turned towards Tae-su. Its eyes darted around wildly. Tae-su remained calm. This one couldn't see what was in front of it, but Tae-su's scent was too strong. It opened its mouth wide, about to snap at him. Tae-su simply swung his axe, and the ghoul's head flew off. The head rolled across the ground. As for the monk, his entrails had been ripped out by the ghoul, and he lay there, barely breathing. The infection had almost reached his face. Tae-su's axe was pointed at him. The Buddha statue still shone brightly, but his faith had crumbled. Tears streamed down his face as he mumbled, "The teachings of Buddha." A streak of red shot through the air. Tae-su had finished off the last person in the temple. He walked straight out. Then he glanced back. Tae-su had never believed in Buddha. He thought that if the world was like this, and Nabi being taken away, could it all be a punishment? Tae-su turned and walked back inside. He walked towards the Buddha statue with his axe. Tae-su pleaded, "My daughter, where is she? Do you know?" At that moment, another ghoul footprint appeared at the door. The monk who died first had completely turned into a ghoul. It craved the scent of humans. It charged into the main hall, attacking Tae-su from behind. He was fully aware of who was behind him. A splash of red blood hit the wall. Tae-su's axe was covered in countless splatters of ketchup. Tae-su walked out of the temple. From now on, he would find his own path, refusing to submit to fate. No one and nothing could stop Tae-su. The scene shifts to Nabi. The little girl slipped. She fell flat on her face. Si-hyun, who was nearby, saw it. Nabi tumbled down the slope. She hit her chin on the grass. It hurt a lot. Suddenly, Nabi saw a residential area here. Si-hyun ran over worriedly. Are you okay? It was the first time Nabi had seen so many houses. What is this place? Si-hyun also looked up. He told Nabi that it used to be a village. But not anymore. He further explained to her that many houses together make a village. And paradise, where they were heading, was a city, much larger than this place. Suddenly, Nabi started crying loudly. Si-hyun quickly hushed her. Keep it down, or the ghouls will come. Her tears fell to the ground. Nabi couldn't stop crying. Si-hyun looked at the girl, unsure of what to do next. He slowly sat down next to Nabi. The two of them sat there looking at the village. Si-hyun said nothing, just quietly sat beside Nabi, waiting for her to cry her heart out before they moved on. The scene shifts to another place. A house at the foot of a mountain. Here, there was a moss-covered cellar. Inside, someone was chopping meat. But this kind of meat, you can probably guess what it is. The butcher skillfully sharpened his knife and cut it into pieces. Someone sitting nearby was watching a movie. He complained that the other guy was being too loud with his chopping. The fat guy had just seared a piece of meat. He then put it in his mouth and chewed greedily, saying, "Sorry." On the computer screen that the kid was watching was a murder film. His hand was busy below as he watched it. When infected with the Ghoul Plague, the first symptoms are skin inflammation, hair loss, and teeth becoming sharper. They feel no pain, and their senses of sight, hearing, and smell far surpass those of a normal person. Their strength is 3 times that of a human, and they can infect others through blood and saliva. Furthermore, the only thing they care about is humans. As long as ghouls exist in this world, humanity will never escape their pursuit. But to put it another way, wherever there are ghouls, there are humans. While fighting a group of ghouls on the road, a girl suddenly appeared. She was panicked and seemed to be running from something. The girl ran past Tae-su. He wanted to ask her a few questions, but he was suddenly startled. A meat cleaver flew past Tae-su's face. It struck the girl squarely in the back of the neck. She fell face first to the ground. Tae-su immediately turned to look at the attacker. A person with the build of a child scolded the fat one. "I told you not to kill people anymore. They're scarce these days." He was holding a girl by the hair. "You dare to run away, later I'll cut you into pieces and eat you. Bones and all." The small person's camera turned to Tae-su. He pointed the camera straight at him and declared him the next main actor. Tae-su looked at these lunatics spouting nonsense in front of him, not even paying them any mind. He simply held up his daughter's picture and asked if they had seen a 10-year-old girl named Nabi. The small person asked, "Was she kidnapped? Is she your daughter?" while still filming Tae-su. Tae-su just insisted, "Have you seen her?" The other side seemed to want to provoke him, not answering Tae-su, and instead taunting. "This is an interesting movie script. This theme is quite appealing. I choose you to be the main actor." Tae-su put the picture away. He asked irritably, "What are you mumbling about? I asked if you've seen her or not." But the brat was still stubborn, just keeping the camera on Tae-su. At this point, he realized he was in danger and answered that he hadn't seen her, adding a placating sentence. "I think it would be good if the two of you were together." Then he said, "If it's a child kidnapping, he might have taken her to paradise." Hearing that name, Tae-su immediately reacted. In his mind, an image of that island appeared. Tae-su quickly reached out. He asked urgently, "Where is paradise?" Tae-su's hand was already grabbing the kid's collar. "You have to tell me the truth. Don't hide anything from me." The kid, as if he had a screw loose, replied, "This one is also an actor, so he can't be killed." Immediately, the burly Man-like woman rushed forward and swung her cleaver at Tae-su. He skillfully dodged her continuous attacks. Finally, the cleaver was dropped. She, relying on her large size, decided not to injure the actor and tried to catch him with her bare hands. Her massive hands grabbed at Tae-su as she warned him not to move or he'd get hurt. She thought catching Tae-su would be as easy as flipping her hand. But she was wrong. His strength was so immense that she couldn't lift him up. Even with all her effort, sweating profusely, she couldn't budge him. Tae-su threw her hands off and roared, "From now on, you will only listen to what I say." Then he rushed forward and grabbed her stinking arm. Tae-su used his strength to throw down the woman who was twice his size. She was stunned. This was the first time she had faced such a strong opponent. In the end, the massive body, like a fat pig, was slammed to the ground. He then pummeled her relentlessly. He was in a frenzy and couldn't stop. He raised his hand, holding her meat cleaver. He prepared to finish off this disgusting creature that enjoyed eating human flesh. But at the crucial moment, Tae-su was shot in the arm with a tranquilizer dart. It was the kid who shot him. He looked up at Tae-su with a defiant expression. He pulled the dart out of his arm. He shifted his target to the audacious brat. His face was grim, as if he wanted to eat him alive. But the kid still wasn't scared. The cannibal woman also had a tranquilizer gun. One dose wasn't enough, so she shot him again. Tae-su was hit with another dart in his right bicep. But he didn't care. Tae-su said in a terrifying tone, "I told you. From now on, you will only listen to what I say." His eyes were glaring. A moment later, the perverted kid was cornered by Tae-su, who was demanding to know where paradise was. Even though Tae-su was choking him, he still wouldn't talk. Tae-su released his grip, and the kid coughed for a long time. He finally confessed that he had heard a former actor of his talk about it. A place that was peaceful and separate from the ghouls. But to prevent people from going there, they deliberately removed its name from real maps. The kid made a deal he would tell Tae-su the real name of the place if he agreed to be an actor for him. An actor in a survival movie, where the trapped people had to overcome many games to escape. If they succeeded, there would be a happy ending, and he could go to paradise with his daughter. Tae-su got physical again. You think you have a choice, but somehow, the burly woman had snuck up and stabbed him with a tranquilizer needle. She asked the kid excitedly, "Brother, did I do a good job?" Tae-su kicked her hard. By now, his whole body was swaying and he felt sick. The perverted kid had a sick pleasure in watching Tae-su slowly pass out. He was trying to control his body, planning to take out the two of them before he fell asleep. The kid wasn't scared. He even asked, "Are you okay? What if you fall asleep after killing us? It could be a delicious blood feast for the ghouls." At this, he tilted his shameless face and continued to ask, "Are you okay?" Then the kid pointed to a nearby room. "If you spare me, I'll take you in there to play the survival game. It's a win-win. At least you won't become a pile of shit for the ghouls." Tae-su was silent. Then he slowly opened his mouth. Tae-su grabbed the meat cleaver and charged. The kid, however, laughed out loud in excitement. Tae-su's target was a nearby pillar. He slammed the cleaver deep into it. The cleaver missed the kid's head by an inch. And at that moment, Tae-su collapsed. This perverted kid laughed heartily. It had been a long time since he had met such a strong actor. Tae-su was completely unconscious. Now, only the kid was left conscious. Tae-su opened his eyes. Dazed and surprised, he found himself in a normal world. And he himself was wearing new clothes. There were even children playing together here. In the crowd, he saw Nabi. Tae-su quickly called his daughter's name. Tae-su had found his daughter. He ran for his life to reach her. The little girl was about to turn and look. Tae-su was both crying and anxious. But then, Nabi's face was distorted and had turned into a ghoul's. When he opened his eyes, it was all a dream. In front of him was a lamp. Tae-su was not in that peaceful world. But he felt lucky that it was just a dream. Suddenly, a ghoul duck lunged at him, trying to bite him. Outside, the fat woman was fanning the flames to grill meat. The kid turned to look. Compared to her passion for eating human flesh, his passion for art was perverted. She sat there savoring pieces of human meat, while the kid rambled on about the art of humans devolving into animals. To him, he wanted to awaken the animal instincts of the people here. He thought of this place as a temple protecting the last spark of art. He was extremely excited for this documentary, and the main actor was Tae-su, who was locked in a room with a ghoul. Action. When Tae-su woke up and found himself being attacked, he immediately jumped to another spot. He quickly looked around. The ghoul's hands had been chopped off and it was tied down. It could only move within a certain range due to the chain. Tae-su remembered what the kid had said about the survival game. Whoever survived would be set free. At that moment, Tae-su glanced up. The camera was pointed at him. Tae-su stood up and slowly thought, if I had been a little faster, not let my guard down, been a little more careful, then things wouldn't have come to this. After 10 years of hiding in the mountains, his combat instincts had dulled. Now he had to get them back quickly, or else Nabi could become the very thing he hated. So, there was no more time to waste. The first victim was the ghoul in the room with him. Tae-su noticed the door was locked. He deduced that since the door was locked but there was no key inside, this must be a game to find the key. He looked in every corner of the small room, and also at the ghoul he had destroyed. Now lying on the floor, Tae-su dug into its stomach and retrieved the key. As he wiped the blood from his hands, he cursed the kid for his sick tastes. When he stepped out of the room, Tae-su met the girl from that morning again. She was startled and scared when she saw him. She then realized Tae-su was the person she had met that morning. She said she wasn't a bad person either and wanted to escape from here. Tae-su thought that since there were 6 rooms, there must be 6 participants. He was only focused on finding a way out and paid no attention to the girl. The girl spoke up. Hey, doesn't everyone want to escape from here? Tae-su told her to gather the others. In his hand was the red lock and the key to his room. A room was opened. A couple was freed. The two of them hugged each other, anxiously asking if the other was okay. At that moment, someone else also managed to open their door. A short, slightly overweight man. The short-haired girl yelled at the unopened rooms. Didn't you hear me? You have to cut open the ghoul's stomachs to get the keys. Tae-su walked over to her. Then he leaned in to look through the door's window to check the situation. Inside, there was an old man with long white hair. Cowering. Tae-su saw this man and stared for a long time. Then he slowly reached his hand in towards the chain. The chain restraining the ghoul was pulled taut. The ghoul was dragged back towards the door. Tae-su's strength was truly no joke. The girl and the others watched him. Horrified, the ghoul's eyes lit up. A second later, its head was severed from its neck, and blood splattered all over the room. It even spilled outside. Tae-su, holding the chain, said, My daughter went missing yesterday, and now I don't know where she is. I don't care what you all are doing here, but I don't want to waste any more time. If anyone gets in my way of getting out of here, they'll end up just like that ghoul. The old man was now trembling in the small room, covered in sweat. He slowly turned to look. He saw that the door to the room was open. The skinny old man now shakily walked out. Tae-su was fed up with his slow pace. The short-haired girl on the side urged, Sir, hurry up and open the lock. The old man quickly went to unlock it. Suddenly, he bumped into the girl as he passed. The scare annoyed her boyfriend. The old man quickly apologized, saying it was an accident. Then he quickly unlocked it. And so, the 6 keys representing the 6 rooms were finally used. As the door opened, horrifying screams echoed from the front. Everyone here was bewildered. The old man stood silently, staring into the darkness. The 6 people in the room officially entered the next stage. When they stepped out of the room, it was pitch black. This dark room had another door blocking their way, and it couldn't be opened. Tae-su could smell blood very close by. Everyone was still trying to find a way. He turned in the direction of the smell. The shortest man among the 6 suddenly acted strangely. Someone had pushed him from behind. Terrified, he ran straight ahead. He was now near a ghoul but still hadn't realized he was about to die. Its hideous mouth opened wide, and then came his blood-curdling scream. Tae-su and the others were extremely confused as someone was being attacked. At that moment, he discovered a switch nearby. He flipped the switch, and the lights turned on. In front of the 5 of them, the shortest man in the group was being eaten by a ghoul. Right at the iron bars, he was being held tightly by several hands. The short-haired woman cursed under her breath. Shit. When she looked ahead, she saw that to move forward, they had to pass through iron cages full of ghouls, and they could easily reach out and grab people. Inside the cages were starving ghouls. The short-haired girl was terrified. She saw a key behind the iron cages, and it was probably the key to the exit. But with the current situation, it was very difficult. She alerted everyone. "We have to go through there to get the key and get out," Tae-su said. "That kid planned all of this. There's no way everyone can escape this game. One person has to volunteer to go in there, squeeze through the narrow iron cage, and sacrifice their life to bring out the key." Meaning, one of the remaining 5 people had to be sacrificed, and that was the kind of game it was. The kind the creator was eagerly anticipating. The couple was having a problem. It seemed the girl was injured somewhere. As for the short-haired woman, she was going crazy over this, annoyed. She turned around. She looked at the shortest man in the group. Since he was already bitten, could he get the key for the group? By now, he was almost completely transformed. He couldn't speak, and even roared. About to attack her, he was immediately met with a kick from Tae-su. His decisive action saved the girl's life. The oldest man here asked, "So, who's going in there now?" The short-haired girl let out a long sigh. She lamented that the ghoul outbreak started when she was 20. So she only had 20 years of peace. Then, not caring anymore. She said it would be too frustrating to die like this. She then threatened everyone, saying she had a reason to live, and if anyone forced her to go in, she would throw the key to the ghouls. The remaining people were all scared and all wanted to live, not wanting to be the one to be sacrificed. The young man and woman in love had been through many hardships together before the ghouls appeared. But they could endure it because they had each other. He couldn't leave her behind, and neither could she. The short-haired girl mentioned that she heard Tae-su was looking for his daughter, then turned to the silver-haired old man and asked if he had any reason to keep living. He was terrified and didn't know how to answer. Covered in sweat, he stammered out a few words. That is, everyone looked at the old man. The short-haired girl deliberately provoked everyone. Everyone understands. Right, and everyone knows who should be sacrificed here. She yelled. "You still want to play the good guy at a time like this, who's going to acknowledge that after you're dead?" Then she reasoned that since he was the one who had lived the most peaceful life here, he had enjoyed enough. Her words scared the old man so much he wet his pants. He bowed under the pressure of being forced to die. Completely unable to speak or argue, the young man said, "Don't force him like that. This is something for the person to decide for themselves." She yelled again, having lost her composure. "So what do we do now?" "So now we play rock, paper, scissors. Let's see what you'll do if it lands on you and your wife." The wife, who was in great pain, heard the girl's harsh words and became very angry. Suddenly, she vomited a mouthful of blood. Her husband worriedly asked, "What's wrong with you?" She rolled up her sleeve and saw that her hand had mutated a lot. She didn't know when it had happened, but it was very painful. The moment he saw the change in his wife's skin, the husband's face turned pale. It was clear that his wife hadn't been bitten but was already infected. The old man said, "It could be from when she was opening the lock and got blood on a scratch." The husband was bewildered, truly panicked. Seeing his wife like that, he jumped back. The wife was surprised to see her loving husband avoid her like that. Now, she was faced with a look of fear and avoidance. He kept saying, "It's not like that," while his wife looked down sadly. But the other woman took this opportunity to say, "Well, we need someone to go in and get the key anyway. So this works out perfectly." The husband was truly angered by her words. He lunged forward and grabbed her by the throat. He threatened that if she opened her mouth again, he would kill her right there. The wife then called out, "Honey." He turned around. She reminded him of the day he proposed to her. The pandemic had started, and they had almost died. But because he was by her side, she was truly happy. If it weren't for him, she would have died long ago. She would always remember the moment he proposed and said she wasn't sad at all, but happy. Happy to remember that. Knowing him in this life was a true happiness. After saying that, she voluntarily stepped into the small gap between the 2 iron cages to get the key. A ghoul's arm grabbed her. It bit the girl's face. Then countless hands reached out to grab her, but she still tried to go inside. And she got the key. But now she was being torn apart by the ghouls. Yet she still tried to squeeze her way out. Tears streamed down her face. There were still many ghoul hands in front of her. They were so disgusting. There was blood everywhere. She collapsed. The husband and the others watched without blinking. She couldn't take it anymore. The key fell to the ground. The short-haired girl impatiently yelled. Just throw it. Some time ago, Tae-su had locked up a ghoul for an experiment. Not only did he find ways to deal with them, but he also studied them in depth. Experiment number 38. Transformation time over set minutes. Compiling the results of all experiments so far. The minimum time to turn into a ghoul is 6 to 8 seconds. Regardless of age or gender, Tae-su still hadn't figured out what factor determined the time. Through many observations, Tae-su discovered that those who accepted becoming a ghoul transformed very quickly. On the other hand, those who tried to protect something until the very end had a slower transformation process. A strong will to live and protect someone could slow down the virus's progression. But of course, this was just Tae-su's hypothesis, not scientifically proven. In this case, it was the same. The wife was fighting until the very end. When she managed to stand up, her husband looked up at her, his eyes fixed on her. He couldn't bear to see the one he loved being tortured and decided to run forward. Tae-su quickly stopped him. He clawed at Tae-su's large arm, screaming, but couldn't break free. At that moment, the key was thrown out. The husband was stunned. The wife reached out, trying to say, No. No. I told you. I'm not sad at all. So don't feel guilty. Okay. As soon as she said this, a ghoul jumped out and attacked. It pressed her against the iron cage. They tore the poor girl's body to pieces. The husband witnessed his wife being tortured, but could do nothing more than scream in despair. His screams mingled with the bloodthirsty growls of the ghouls. A tragic scene unfolding. Meanwhile, the short-haired girl told everyone to come over and see something. With that, she ran off quickly. She used the key to open the door and discovered that this room even had a bathroom with running water. In contrast to the torment of the others, the short-haired girl was quite interested in the well-equipped room. Tae-su and the old man also stepped inside. He warily glanced at Tae-su, but Tae-su's gaze remained fixed straight ahead. The old man's skinny arm gripped a weapon, ready to strike. He turned and tried to attack Tae-su's neck, but failed. Instead, he was kicked by him. A single kick from Tae-su sent the old man tumbling. He was already weak, and the kick left him gasping for air as if he were dying. The short-haired girl picked up the piece from the floor. Why are you suddenly fighting? And what is this? Tae-su told her it was a plague demon's bone. The girl was startled. Then she remembered the old man had intentionally bumped into the other girl before. It was all his scheme. In the second round, someone had pushed that short man in first. At this, the short-haired girl realized the horrifying truth about the old man. Startled, she dropped the plague demon's bone. The atmosphere became tense and awkward. When the young man entered and heard the truth from the old man, he couldn't believe it. My Jisoo had to die because of this old man and a small piece of bone. The old man crawled on the floor as the short-haired girl ran toward him. Suddenly, he was kicked in the face. The young man was furious. You old bastard, say it yourself. Did you cause all of this? The old man shamelessly replied. It wasn't me. The world is just like this. This answer only enraged the young man further. He punched the wretched old man repeatedly. D. You son of a bitch. As he was hitting him, Tae-su suddenly stopped his arm. The old man was still breathing. Tae-su said he still had questions for him. Only then did the young man stop. After a moment of stunned silence, he spoke. Wait. If that's the case, did you know everything from the beginning and just stood by watching? Tae-su said coldly. I just want to get out of here immediately. I don't care about anything else. Realizing this, the young man cursed and turned to throw a punch at Tae-su. But how could a pampered boy's strength compare to his? The young man was thrown to the ground by Tae-su. He said coldly again. I told you from the start. I'll kill anyone who gets in my way. The young man gasped for breath. As he lay on the floor, Tae-su explained that he only figured things out after it had all happened. I understand your pain. But don't take it all out on others. Because in the moment, you couldn't protect your wife. The one who failed was you. Meanwhile, Tae-su walked up to the old man, who didn't dare to look at him. The old man said he knew things would come to this, which was why he wanted to kill Tae-su. But Tae-su always kept his distance. Moreover, even though Tae-su seemed to be looking elsewhere, the old man always felt he was being watched. Rounds 1 and 2 couldn't actually be solved by just one person. So it was likely the third round would be the same. Yet the old man risked reducing the number of people, which meant he knew exactly what the next round would be. It was a game that didn't require many people. Only one final survivor. Tae-su exposed everything in front of him. And the old man finally confirmed it was all true. The short-haired girl was horrified. So you killed people just to be the last one standing. Then she paused, wondering how Tae-su knew that. She glanced at the security camera. In the room, a perverted brat was watching. The old man must have made a deal with him. The old man confirmed he was the final survivor and had been playing this game for 3 years. The short-haired girl couldn't believe it. 3 years? Then why haven't you gotten out yet? He said that being the sole survivor wasn't the end. There was one final round. That was Gushokwo. You had to beat him to get out. If you couldn't win, you'd be locked in an isolated room to wait for more people to arrive. It meant that until you killed him or were killed by him, you could never escape. Hearing the truth, the girl broke down. What kind of game is this if you can't win? Why are you doing this to us? She stared at the camera and cried. Then an idea struck her. If that's the case, why don't we just live together? We don't have to die. There's food, a place to sleep, and even a reading room here. Then she turned to Tae-su, trying to persuade him not to kill her. Besides, you don't need to look for a daughter whose whereabouts are unknown. This way, we can at least live. As long as we survive, there's bound to be a way. The old man chuckled at the naive girl's words. He asked, Are you confident? Can you escape the fear of someone killing you every day, even if no one kills each other? They'll just add new rules to spice things up. So whether it's in here or out there, it's all hell. The old man's words plunged the girl deeper into despair, tears streaming down her face. The husband sat in a corner, showing dangerous signs. His face turned, filled with killing intent. If that's the case, then you all understand. Right. His hand grabbed an object. Then he finished off the old man first to avenge his late wife. The old man's face was covered in blood as the young man beat him relentlessly. He violently threw a chair, not stopping there. He then grabbed an iron pipe. Crash times, he struck again. A loud sound echoing. The old man raised his head and looked down. The young man stopped. He also turned his face down to look. The old man had quickly used the plague demon's bone to stab him in the thigh. Then he kicked the young man away. He couldn't believe he was losing to an old man. A second later, the husband was stabbed multiple times in the abdomen by the skinny old man. Excruciating pain washed over him as he vomited a large amount of blood. The old man was surprisingly strong. He stood up and grabbed the head of the young man, who was twice his size. The old man glanced nearby. There was a sharp cabinet corner. Thud thud times loud noises echoed throughout the room. The cabinet corner was stained with blood. On the monitor, the husband could be seen logging out, and the killer was the old man. With 3 years of experience in this brutal game, the game officially had 3 contestants left, facing the other 2. The old man confessed, his voice like a beast's. 75. That's how many people I've killed in this game. A weak flame will eventually die out. You have no idea how I've survived in this game. He now completely revealed his true colors. Getting revenge on those bastards is my business. If you don't like it, he had barely finished his threat when Tae-su grabbed him by the throat. His scrawny body was no match for Tae-su. Tae-su looked at the wrinkled body with disgust. Tae-su tightened his grip, veins popping on his hand. Crack times. The sound of the tiny old man's neck bones snapping echoed as Tae-su officially dealt with this human monster. The feet stopped struggling. The short-haired girl, sensing she would be the next victim, started to run, but in front of her were iron bars. Not wanting to die so young, she screamed in despair. Help me, please. Help me. Tae-su's footsteps slowly approached. He was truly terrifying. Walking toward her coldly, without a word, Tae-su said, I will survive here. I will kill all the lunatics behind these bars. And I will find my daughter. I won't kill you, because I'm sure you have a reason to live. 2. His words brought the young girl some relief. She reached into her pocket. She pulled out a lottery ticket and said to Tae-su, Do you know how much this ticket is worth? It's Nelia. 6 billion. This is the first time I've ever shown this to anyone. I was just starting to think my miserable life was about to change. And then the plague demons appeared that very day. She still hoped that one day When things returned to normal, she could claim her prize money. But in this situation, it seemed there was no hope left. Scene change. In the observation room, the muscular woman yelled, "I told you things would change." The brat was more excited. Finally, we're rid of that old man. As soon as she said that, she looked down. She saw Tae-su standing near the young girl, who was unconscious. He looked straight at the camera and said, "Come out here, you bastard." The large woman was terrified by his expression, and even the brat felt a chill. The final round began. Gusakwo appeared. She was annoyed, her wheezing breaths reeking of human flesh. Holding a meat cleaver, she stomped down the long hallway toward Tae-su. The meat cleaver gleamed under the lights as she approached Tae-su. "This is great. I was hoping you'd be the one to survive." Gusakwo said, "I was careless before. I'll finish you now." With that, she charged aggressively. Her arm swung around like a fan blade as she screamed, "I'll carve you up and eat you like a chicken." Faced with her rage, Tae-su's expression didn't change. On the camera monitor, the short-haired girl lay on the ground while Tae-su prepared to face Gusakwo. The floor was stained with the indelible blood of those who had died here. Gusakwo was collapsed on the floor. Tae-su raised his leg high. How could she possibly fight him? Tae-su delivered a powerful kick, and her large head splattered red everywhere. Her face was completely destroyed. Tae-su spoke up. "Isn't this the final game?" In front of him, the brat was holding a gun. He threatened Tae-su, forcing him to turn around and sit down. Tae-su said, "I don't care what you've done or what you'll do. Just tell me where paradise is, and you can keep doing your thing." The brat grinned with delight, but he refused the offer, saying this was his masterpiece and he was the director. So Tae-su was not allowed to leave. "From now on, you will be my muse." Veins bulged all over Tae-su's body from rage. A shot was fired, but this time, it lodged itself in the wall. The brat was scared out of his wits. It was the short-haired girl who had acted. She had been playing dead all this time, waiting for an opportunity to strike him. He was surprised. What the hell? Before he could finish, someone else had smashed a flower pot on his head. The vase shattered, and the brat glanced over. It was the old man who had done it, and he was completely unharmed. The truth was slowly being revealed. It turned out the three of them had been acting from the start. The short-haired girl complained that Tae-su's acting was a bit too real, and it hurt her neck. If Tae-su hadn't been convincing, the other two would have found out. But that experience was enough to scare the girl for life. And now, the mastermind was tied up. The sharp point of a knife was held in front of the kid's face. Tae-su began his interrogation. "Tell me everything you know about paradise." "Now." He smirked, unafraid. "Why bother with threats? The end is the end anyway." "I'll talk." He said that paradise was said to have maintained a civilization like it was 10 years ago. Everyone wanted to get in. But if armed soldiers found you, they would shoot on sight. But it wasn't impossible. The key was children. If you brought a child, you would be granted residency, regardless of gender, even for newborns. Of course, they weren't giving out free passes because they cared about the children. Tae-su asked impatiently, "So where is it?" The brat was silent for a moment, looking at him strangely. Then he said the name clearly, Yongjae Island. It used to be a populous island city, not far from here. Tae-su was furious when he heard this. His whole body burned with rage. His mind filled with thoughts of his daughter and a deep sense of indignation over where Gusakwo was. She was still breathing. Unexpectedly, she was able to sit up. When she looked up, Gusakwo saw her own ghoul biting her arm. At some point, one of her arms had been eaten off. Her anger erupted, and she took it all out on the ghoul. By the time she calmed down, the ghoul's head was a pile of mush. She then clutched her injured arm in pain. The infection had spread through most of her body, and it was advancing rapidly. In her final moments, Gusakwo still couldn't accept dying like this, vowing to chew Tae-su alive. Over here, he had retrieved his axe. The short-haired girl pointed at the kid and asked what to do with him. Tae-su left him to the short-haired girl and the old man, saying he would go on ahead. The old man trembled. The kid also looked up at the person who had imprisoned him for 3 years. The old man approached the one who had wronged him. He had imagined this scene every day. The old man said he had prepared a lot, He would start slowly and take his time. Because now he had plenty of it. He had to pay for his crimes. The kid started to feel fear. Over here. Gusakwu had evolved into a powerful ghoul. She stomped her foot hard. The sound of her stomping terrified everyone inside. Her massive body approached. From the hallway. 2 glowing eyes could be seen. Gusakwu had evolved into a monster ghoul. With the sole desire to devour Tae-su. The first thing the monster did when it burst out was to target him. Tae-su couldn't dodge, and turned his attention to what was behind Gusakwu. The first snap missed. And Gusakwo's head got stuck in a cabinet. Tae-su took this opportunity to land an axe blow on the back of Gusakwo's neck. But he sensed that this was not like the usual ones. He struck a blow. But its skin was too tough, and it was unharmed. Tae-su was stunned. This was the first time he had encountered such a strong one. Now, Gusakwu slowly turned its hideous face around. Its teeth were covered in ketchup. Sharp and jagged. Nearby, there were many plastic bags containing the remains of those who had been taken out. Gusakwu took a bite out of one of the bags, sending body parts flying everywhere. Its mouth was like a grinder, covered in ketchup as it chewed greedily. Gusakwu buried its face in the fridge, eating the meat. The 3 of them watched the scene in horror. Tae-su thought to himself, "What is that? A ghoul? Does that mean when it's done with that? It'll be our turn." The short-haired girl's face turned pale with fear. "We have to run, we've survived this long. We can't die like this." The thought was immediately followed by action. Tae-su and the old man were also surprised by how fast she could run. She ran into a passage created by a collapsed wall. The ghoul's mouth opened wide, and it stopped eating. It had now finished all the frozen meat in the fridge. The girl ran to the end, determined not to die. She ran through another door. When she looked up, she was startled again. In front of her was a warehouse. She took a risk and ran inside. She took a few steps closer to a large iron door. She didn't know how to open the door. There was a keypad, but she didn't know the code. She just banged on the door, screaming for help. The lottery ticket in her pocket fell out. Her most precious possession had fallen out. She saw it, just as the monster caught up to her. Sometimes people say money can't buy happiness. Every time she heard that, she would ask back, "Have you ever been poor?" Yona had never lived a full life. Before the ghoul outbreak, she would often turn to alcohol to drown her sorrows. While choosing a drink, someone approached her. The woman asked if she was Yona. Then they whispered to each other, and the other woman fumbled in her bag. Yona and the woman went to the checkout counter. She noticed the lottery ticket stand at the store. The change was left on the counter. She used that money to buy 2 lottery tickets. Then she went with the woman to a nearby motel, so they could go to hell together. The woman angrily complained about how her family treated her worse than a dog. Seeing her so miserable, the girl thought this was all so noisy. On the TV, the host announced it was time for the lottery drawing. The order didn't matter, as long as the numbers matched. You won. The first number was 23. Number 26 was drawn. Next was 7. Then 19. Number 9. Number 45. The 2 of them checked their tickets with each number called. The room was strangely quiet. Yona laughed. Missed them all again. Even with my last lottery ticket, I couldn't even win 5,001. It's true. Our lives are completely abandoned. But Yona found it strange that the woman in front of her was completely silent. Her hand was trembling as she checked each number. She slowly stood up, her hands and eyes checking and rechecking. The winning numbers were exactly the same as on the other woman's ticket. Yona saw it clearly. The water in the bathroom was running, washing away the bloodstains. The 2 of them fought over the winning lottery ticket. It got violent, and the other woman was knocked unconscious. Yona had attacked her own best friend. She didn't want to live in poverty forever. Even though she had given the other woman the ticket, it was bought with Yona's money. She was excited, thinking she was about to live a life of luxury. But she had no idea the ghoul pandemic was silently unfolding. No one was paying attention to the news. The scene shifts back to the present. Tae-su was swinging his axe at the monster. He tried to land another powerful blow on its back. This time, it left a dark bruise. But it didn't seem to have much effect. Tae-su was surprised by how hard this thing's skull was. He kicked it again, then he backed away. When he looked up, the massive, dome-like jaw of the evolved ghoul was opening wide, about to snap at Tae-su. He used his axe to jam its jaws open, stopping its bite. The monster's mouth was held open in that position. Tae-su quickly pulled out a dagger. He jumped on top of it and slashed several times at its thick hide. Tae-su was surprised again. The monster's reaction was too strong. It roared, shaking the entire area. Tae-su was thrown off by the force of the scream. He crashed into a pile of crates, which then collapsed on top of him. The old man's skinny feet approached. He had finished dealing with that little brat. Now, standing near the buried Tae-su, he said, "It's over. It's a pity I couldn't make them die more painfully. But at least the debt is paid." But the old man knew that even if he was the only one left alive, he would still be killed by that meat grinder. This is enough. At that moment, from under the pile of crates, Tae-su emerged. He wasn't dead. He stood up and told the old man to shut up. The outcome of this game would be decided by Tae-su. The old man was too cowardly, which was why he could never beat that cannibal woman in 3 years. Tae-su's axe flew through the air. It embedded itself in the floor, right at the monster's feet. It created a wound on its eye. Tae-su said he wouldn't be as useless as the old man, and was determined to survive and get out of here. He walked towards the bulky creature. The monster was also walking towards him. If Tae-su didn't win this fight, everything he had done would be meaningless. The giant ghoul opened its mouth wide and let out a scream to inflict damage. Starting the game, Tae-su placed his hand on the ghoul's thick hide. Tae-su, armed with a small dagger, jumped up. Meanwhile, the monster was charging wildly. Tae-su successfully dodged it. He landed successfully and retrieved his axe. He glared at it. At that moment, from behind the boxes, the old man screamed his lungs out. As it was about to pounce and tear the old man to pieces, Tae-su observed. He knew the ghoul's weak spot was the brain, but this one's skull was too hard, so he couldn't finish it off. So he had to aim for softer spots like the eyes, nose, or the base of the skull. Among them, the most likely target was both near the brain and easy to strike. Tae-su charged forward and landed an axe blow on the monster. He aimed for the eye. Half the axe blade sank in. Ketchup gushed out like a geyser. The ghoul was in pain and staggered. Suddenly, Tae-su froze. He realized the axe blow wasn't deep enough to reach the brain. He was still sitting on the ghoul's back. The old man cowered in a corner. His face was pale and he was trembling with fear. He remembered the 2 victims he had just killed. He told himself, "It's only right that I'm the one to kill that bitch. I've killed so many people." The old man stood up. He didn't want to stop here. The desire to win this twisted game flared up. He told himself he couldn't die before his revenge was complete. The old man stared at the ghoul's leg. He lunged forward and held on tight. Above, the ghoul squeezed, its eyes shut in discomfort. But the axe was in the way. The old man used all his strength. The ghoul's other leg lifted up. It thrashed around in annoyance and kicked the old man. Tae-su was surprised that the old man had joined in. He immediately jumped down. He used the momentum to pull the axe out of the ghoul's eye. Its body fell into some wooden planks. Tae-su continued to land a few more axe blows. The ghoul roared in pain, spitting out a rain of saliva and blood. At the moment, it was distracted and in a frenzy. Tae-su struck with another axe blow. He pulled it out and prepared to strike again. This time, he aimed for the other eye. Tae-su could imagine the frontal lobe deep inside its eye socket. With all his strength, Tae-su split that rotten brain in 2. The ghoul stopped. It could no longer cause trouble. Tae-su stood before it. Suddenly, his expression changed. The old man's heart was also pounding. His arm was injured. He had clearly tried so hard for 3 years to escape this hell. The infection spread with great speed. The door was also opened. The old man and Tae-su finally got out. The password hadn't changed. The old man knew it. So he didn't need to get it from the ghoul. Tae-su said there was no time to give him a proper burial. But he had a way to help the old man escape the pain. His arm was now becoming more and more inflamed. Under the moonlight, Tae-su also thanked the old man. He also wanted to apologize to Tae-su for trying to kill him in the game earlier. But Tae-su said that those were things they were forced to do. So there was no need to apologize. The old man smiled. Then he told Tae-su that to get to Yongye Island, he just had to go straight east. Tae-su nodded his thanks and said he had to go. Then he left, leaving the old man alone here. His eyes followed him. Tae-su's lonely figure disappeared. The old man looked at the world one last time. He closed the door. He locked himself inside, so he wouldn't harm anyone. The scene shifts back to the room deep inside. The kid who created the game hadn't been dealt with by the old man yet. He held a flashlight and looked for a way out. But what he found was the body of the fat woman who worked with him, and the old man was sitting there, waiting. The kid approached and shone the flashlight straight in his face. He said excitedly, "They're all dead. It's just you and me now. It's fine. We can just get new actors. This time, you really satisfied me. It's on par with the first time I filmed you. This is what you call art." He shone the light on the old man's injured arm. He was happy because he was about to get a new monster pet. Despite his arrogant words, the old man remained silent. This silence made the kid tremble with fear. He said bluntly, "Don't you know what you're really doing? What kind of art is this? What you're filming isn't a movie. It's just a form of violence you can commit because you're not the one suffering. Using others' pain for extreme stimulation. It's just a cheap desire." He raised his gun and said, "Your words are like the wind to me. I'll continue filming." Before he could pull the trigger, for 3 years, the old man had thought about the best way to get revenge. It was also a way to atone for the many lives he had taken. He had destroyed the hydraulic pipe handle and the electronic panel. He told him a truth. This door would never open again. The kid panicked and yelled, "Wait." The old man smiled with satisfaction. For 3 years, he had tried to survive until this moment. Just for this, the game isn't over yet. And this time, you're the only actor. The camera clearly recorded the final image of the kid and the old man. After the ghoul outbreak, the military had built this bunker. The sturdy door ensured safety. There was also a generator, and enough food for decades. But after 7 years, all the soldiers except the old man had died. Only about a dozen civilians were left. Even so, he still went out to save people. Because he believed it was the last mission of his life. And he met those two. It was the old man who brought Gu Do-yoon into the bunker. The first time he filmed the old man, Gu Do-yoon said he was looking for an actor. He asked back, "Filming." He said he saw that the computer and camera were still working well. The old man was too tired. He didn't want to think about this stuff anymore. "Hey, I'll stop it. If I hadn't saved you, you would have become a ghoul long ago. Don't do such stupid things. Cinema, you can be crazy, but not this crazy. Just sit still." These words hurt his pride. Gu Do-yoon continued to film the old man. He said, "People usually associate art with wealth and fame. But I don't think so. Human nature is animalistic. We are creatures who always wonder why we live." He told everyone that the problem of food and drink was solved. But now they were no different from the dead. We need to feel alive as humans. We need art. Only then can humans feel like humans. He said this straight to the old man's face. As an old commander, he was furious, thinking he was being lectured, and was about to beat him up to knock some sense into him. The two of them had different ideas and were openly confrontational. Somehow, the old man was locked in that room with a small amount of food. He took a bottle of water, but when he picked it up, the color of the water bottle turned red. The camera was pointed at him. He said, "You can't drink that. Because you're an actor." He frowned. "What?" He shamelessly told him. "This is just the beginning. The next part is very exciting." The old man looked out and was startled. Many people were running in the hallway. They had become ghouls. He didn't know why these people had turned out like this. He quickly pushed the door. But it wouldn't budge. He asked Gu Do-yoon, "What have you done?" He said he had mixed ghoul blood into the water. Now, the bunker was no longer a safe place. People who were once parents, siblings, and friends were now trampling over each other to survive. He said this made him excited and feel alive. He roared, "Open the door. You bastard." He mocked. "What are you going to do, suffer the same fate as them? Or will you kill them all to survive?" The crowd of people ran closer to him. But the door remained closed. The old man frantically screamed his name, Gu Do-yoon, and at that moment, he became a monster. In the present, before he transformed into a ghoul. Do-yoon kicked him in the face first. The doorknob fell off. Do-yoon picked it up. Preparing to attack him, he used all his strength. He put everything into the blow. The old man was knocked unconscious. He opened his eyes wide. The doorknob was broken. The electronic panel was also smashed. He slowly put the handle down. He looked over at a nearby corpse, and at the ghouls locked in the cages, And the husband who had died, a tragic death. The lottery ticket that was once a young girl's hope. Do-yoon's companion was also gone. The old man was unconscious. He was alone in the bunker. On the screen, the final scene was playing. Do-yoon's face was covered in sweat. He had never been so scared. He screamed. He used the handle to hit the old man repeatedly, trying to wake him up to open the door for him. I still have many scenes to shoot. Hurry up. Slow. Lonely death was the most terrible torture the old man could think of. The camera recorded that final moment, and it was also the end of the 3-year-long documentary. Scene change. An axe slams into a ghoul's head. Nabi and Sihyun took down a ghoul, but after many days without proper food and water, Sihyun was exhausted. He had lost too much blood. At this rate, he would collapse before they reached their destination. Sihyun told Nabi to rest for the night in a nearby house. The little girl agreed and casually walked in. But Sihyun grabbed her by the collar. He told her to check for signs of human presence before entering. If there are footprints, or if the doorknob is too clean, it's very dangerous. It means someone has been here recently. Because food is hard to find. Many people grow vegetables. So, check for the smell of food and waste. And also check for signs of ghouls. Because wherever there are humans, they are there. But most importantly, you need good luck. Nabi didn't quite understand. You can't check everything one by one. That's more dangerous. You can only do a quick check. The rest depends on luck. After a quick look around, Sihyun deemed the house safe and told Nabi to always stay by his side. Sihyun turned the doorknob. There was a whispering sound nearby. Two people were talking about Nabi and Sihyun. They were thinking of calling for backup but decided against it. One of them said he would handle the man while the other one took Nabi. The other one acknowledged the order. These two were armed. They were both women. And they didn't look like good people. Nabi and Sihyun entered. The house had basic furniture, a sofa, and a TV. This was the first time Nabi had seen a house like this. What caught her attention was the decomposed corpse. Just a skeleton. On the sofa, there was also a corpse in the corner of the room. Its head fallen off, leaving only a skeleton. Nabi screamed in terror. But Sihyun quickly covered her mouth. He whispered, "It's been dead for a while. Are you okay now? This is what the outside world is like. It's not strange to die at any time. In any way. That's why we have to go to paradise. Because it's a safe and happy place." After checking, Sihyun said the second floor was safe and told Nabi to go to sleep without worry. The little girl didn't dare to look around anymore and just obediently said, "Okay." Suddenly, Nabi glanced over. Sihyun had collapsed at some point. The little girl ran over in fear. "What's wrong with you? Wake up." Sihyun was now so weak he couldn't even speak. Nabi remembered when her dad took care of her when she had a fever. She hadn't understood why her body suddenly hurt and felt so hot. Her dad explained that there was a cold virus inside her, and her body was fighting it off, which was why she was burning up. Nabi remembered him giving her medicine to help her body fight better. He gently cheered her on, promising she'd get well soon. Nabi swallowed the bitter pill. Being with her dad was so warm. Nabi missed him. Now, Nabi tucked Sihyun in and placed a cold towel on his forehead. He was running a high fever. Nabi rummaged through the drawers for medicine. Luckily, she found some fever reducers. Just then, she heard a strange noise. Nabi looked toward the door. She couldn't tell if the shadow belonged to a person or an infected. Her eyes widened in fear. The infected smashed through the door and lunged inside. Sihyun was still burning up, but even he sensed that something foul had broken in. Nabi recalled her dad's instructions for when she was alone. He had asked what she'd do if she met an infected. Nabi had waved her little fists, saying she'd fight like him. He had seriously grabbed her by the shoulders. The infected are stupid. They only know how to charge straight ahead. If you climb up high, they can't follow. Nabi thought hard. Where could she find a high place inside a house? Remembering her dad's words, she decided to run into a room with a door and hide. Nabi reached out. She sprinted desperately to the room across the hall and slammed the door shut. The infected kept charging. It started smashing the door. Even hiding in the room, the door would eventually give way, so she had to find a weapon to kill it before that happened. Nabi picked up something small, round, and sharp. The infected shoved its head through the broken door. Her dad's voice echoed in her mind, stabbed their weak points. Like the eyes or temples. You have to pierce the brain in one strike. Nabi squeezed her eyes shut and thrust it forward. When she opened her eyes, the infected was completely motionless. One of its eyes was still glowing. It thrashed around and shrieked. Nabi glanced at some sharp wooden splinters nearby. Suddenly, someone yelled. "Get down," Nabi looked up. From outside the door, a projectile flew straight into the infected's head. Inside the room, Nabi ducked at the shout. She saw the gaping hole in the monster's head. Someone had just saved her life. The person opened the door. She told Nabi, "When you're up against an infected, always aim for the brain." Then she asked if the man lying there was her family. Nabi shook her head vigorously. The woman smiled. "Is that so? That's good." She then introduced herself to Nabi as Shinjua. "I come from a place with only women, called the Amazon." Seeing Nabi tearing up, she added, "I'm taking you there from now on. It's way safer than out here." Shinjua's plan was simple. Step 1. Use the infected to make an impression on the target. When their fear peaked, wait for them to beg for help to gain their trust. Step 2. Killing that crippled guy right in front of the kid was too risky, so she schemed to separate Nabi and Sihyun. Jua told Nabi to wait there while she checked the perimeter. And Step 3. Take advantage of the situation to dispose of Sihyun. She could just use the excuse that he was killed by the infected, but the plan didn't go smoothly. Sihyun had killed Jua's teammate. Even though he was exhausted, today was just a terrible day for Shinjua. Sihyun walked up and said, "I'm not dead yet. That's the will to survive." He threatened her. "Don't touch the kid. She's mine." She was furious enough to spit blood. At this distance, Jua only had one chance to reload. It had to be a fatal shot. In this moment, it was kill or be killed. Shinjua backed down, saying she'd leave the kid and go. Sihyun didn't expect her to give up so easily. She said that if risking her life only got her the kid, there was no point. Avenge a dead teammate didn't matter. In this world, everyone dies sooner or later anyway. Shinjua stated bluntly that this was how she had survived up until now. Sihyun didn't seem to buy a word of it. He turned away and said, "If you say so, I'm leaving." Then he added, "Planning to play dumb and ambush me or call for backup." Jua's true colors showed, though her mouth still denied it. Sihyun lunged forward. "I never trust humans. That's how I've survived this long." Jua raised her slingshot. She fired a steel ball just as Sihyun swung his hammer. The projectile shot toward him. Sihyun dodged it. She grabbed another round, but suddenly flinched. Sihyun slammed his hammer down, but Jua managed to dodge. He launched a relentless flurry of attacks. Jua was backed into a corner. Shinjua hastily begged for a truce. "Wait. Hold on." Sihyun didn't look like he was going to stop. Shinjua thought she was done for. A projectile grazed his neck. Sihyun hadn't expected another attacker. Outside the door, Shinjua's accomplices had arrived. They were armed with slingshots and daggers. They kept firing at Sihyun, but he dodged. Shinjua was pissed that 2 consecutive shots had missed. She chased Sihyun to the door and drew her slingshot, realizing he was outnumbered. He jumped out the window, but when she ran outside, she only met her teammates. Looking grim, they looked over the fence. Sihyun was nowhere to be seen. They temporarily retreated. Nabi was surrounded by darkness. A hood had been placed over her head. Terrified, she clutched her pants tightly. Someone pulled the black cloth off. Only then did Nabi open her eyes. In front of her were many girls her age, all thrilled to see a new friend. "Hi, how old are you? Where are you from? Have you seen an infected?" It was Nabi's first time around so many people. She didn't know what to say. Someone stepped up and quieted the kids. "Too loud. Move aside." An older woman with a cigarette in her mouth walked over to Nabi. The kids reminded her not to smoke, but she didn't care. She asked for Nabi's name. The girl answered, and the woman introduced herself as Bokja, the one in charge of the orphanage, saying she'd be taking care of Nabi from now on. She asked if Shinjua had explained this place to Nabi. Jua said no. Then she took Nabi's hand and led her somewhere. She explained that 6 years ago, their leader found this area and turned it into a sturdy fortress. Then they started rescuing people. Thanks to that, everyone here lived safely and peacefully. Bokya told her, "From now on, you're my kid, and this is your home." Welcome to the Amazon family. Hearing this, Nabi just looked bewildered. Like a blank slate, Nabi just let out a soft "oh." Then she brought up Sihyun. Nabi asked if they could find him and bring him here to live with them, saying she heard he got scared and ran away. She added that he was badly hurt right now. Bokja found the name unfamiliar and glanced at Shinjua. Jua shook her head. Bokja then said, "Boys aren't allowed in here. This place is only for women." Nabi innocently asked why. She took a drag of her cigarette, thinking of an excuse. Then she patted Nabi's head and changed the subject. "You'll understand when you're older. For now, just be a kid." Bokja pointed to the other children, telling Nabi to go play with them. Everyone was cheerful and took a liking to Nabi. Meanwhile, Shinjua walked over to another area. There was a little girl sitting sadly in a corner. Shinjua apologized for being so busy lately. She said she was figuring something out and asked the girl to wait a little longer, crying. The girl asked, "Wait until when? I'm going to die in here." Shinjua hugged her. "It's okay. There's still time. I'll find a way. Trust me. I'll definitely get you out of here. Out of this hell." The girl looked at Nabi and the other kids with a completely disinterested expression. Her eyes showed no desire to fit in with anyone. Over to Tae-su, who knows where he got the motorcycle. Probably stole it off the side of the road. He was speeding through the forest. Tae-su had wasted time at the bunker, but at least he now knew the way to Paradise Island. He figured he was on the right track this time, holding out hope that he could catch up since the guy was injured and couldn't have gone far. As Tae-su drove past a stretch of road, he heard a scream. He slammed on the brakes. Tae-su looked back to see what it was. The scream came from a nearby house, the same one Nabi and Sihyun had entered earlier. Inside, a pack of infected was feasting on flesh. Tae-su opened the door to find them having a gruesome mukbang, catching the scent of fresh human meat. The three monsters lunged at Tae-su. He simply stepped right over them. Tae-su cleanly dispatched all three. He touched the face of the corpse. It was Shinjua's teammate. He realized the person hadn't been dead long, maybe half a day, guessing they hadn't turned into an infected yet. They were probably killed beforehand. That's when he noticed something. Two backpacks sitting nearby. His daughter's purple backpack, and his own hat. Tae-su had finally found a trace of his daughter. Nabi had been here. After days of searching, Tae-su finally had a solid clue about his little girl. He surveyed the room and deduced that while resting, his daughter's kidnapper was attacked, and he managed to take down his assailant. He also spotted projectile marks on the door, meaning there was more than one attacker. Feeling threatened, the guy must have climbed out the window to escape, and probably fled toward the back of the mountain. From the footprints, he could tell the attackers hadn't pursued him. Looking at the shoe sizes, he guessed they were women, and they had taken a child with them. These footprints had to be Nabi's. Following the clues, Tae-su figured out this group of women used slingshots as weapons, and they had taken Nabi away. After confirming Nabi wasn't injured or turning into an infected, Shinjua handed her over to Bokya. She went to report to a man, but this man was showing very strange symptoms. He was trembling, and blood was pouring from his eyes. He was tied tightly to a chair, convulsing in fits, covered in blood. Turns out, this guy wasn't the leader. He was just someone having his organs harvested. The real leader ordered the others to clean up the mess. Shinjua was absolutely disgusted by this. Suddenly, he called her name. Jua. The leader asked if she could go sit in that chair for a bit. She was handcuffed. Shinjua looked at him with an expression of disbelief. The captain, while putting on gloves, said, "For us, dying on a mission is unavoidable. Therefore, we must always be prepared for death. Yet you didn't even intend to fight." As he spoke, he took out a leather whip. Shinjua knew she was about to be punished. The girl said, "In that situation, if we stubbornly fought and both died, retreating would have been more logical." He turned around and said, "I understand. If you feel it's dangerous, just run." Shinjua's face turned pale. The burly woman swung her arm. She had a large build, with long hair covering one side of her face. He asked, "Are you sure? Isn't it that you just didn't want to fight?" The whip cracked down, and blood splattered. She asked, "Do you know how many of your comrades had to die? Now no one wants to team up with you. Because every time, You leave your comrades behind and come back alive. She pulled off her outer layer of clothing. It revealed a muscular body and a back full of scars. A part of his skin was inflamed. Like a ghoul's, she said. They were attacked by scars. When we can't tell who is a scar, we are forced to kill all the men. Because eliminating them is easier than suspecting. The law of the Amazons is absolute, with no room for negotiation. If we don't kill, we will be killed. You abandoned all of us for your own safety. Shinjua couldn't say a word. Only stammering. I was wrong. He said he would give her one chance. Life or death doesn't matter. Go out right now and bring that man back. Prove yourself as a member of the Amazons. Shinjua's handcuffs were released. He threatened her. Don't even think about coming back if you don't complete the mission. Shinjua was let out. Outside. 2 people mocked her. Poor thing. No comrades left. Are you planning to abandon your little sister and run this time? Shinjua was furious at these words. The troublemaker continued to approach her. Seeing her expression, he said condescendingly, "Oh." Not bowing your head, Shinjua didn't back down. She continued to glare at him, but then she looked away. She decided to leave. The 2 guards outside called her a coward. Shinjua left the base and went to the house from before. This time, she went alone. Shinjua was going crazy. She had no idea how to find him. Suddenly, a group of men appeared behind her. They looked like criminals. Shinjua sensed them behind her. He immediately grabbed her hand. Shinjua now had to deal with another troublesome group. She looked at them and saw they were men in prison uniforms. They were the Scars. These men knew Shinjua was from the Amazons. Seeing her alone, they had dark intentions. One of them ordered, "Disarm her first. Don't give her a chance to kill herself before she's humiliated." Shinjua pulled her hand away from his, seeing her resist. The man was quite excited. He tried to kick Shinjua, but she spun around. She wanted to run, but it seemed his legs were too long. Shinjua couldn't escape. The blonde leader said, "Don't be scared. If you don't struggle, we'll be gentle. Let's have a long, good time together." Shinjua blushed. She looked at them in pain, knowing she couldn't fight them off. But suddenly, Tae-su appeared. He asked, "Anyone who has seen a 10-year-old girl? Raise your hand." No one answered Tae-su. Instead, this group was preparing to fight Tae-su for interrupting their fun. The gray-haired man pulled out a carrot-like object. Who is this guy? But before he could even attack, his arm was chopped off by Tae-su's axe. Only now did the man realize this stranger was no ordinary person. His severed arm fell, and the knife dropped as well. He screamed in pain, clutching his arm as a lot of red syrup gushed out. The men in prison uniforms were all stunned. Then, their bloodlust flared up. They roared, "Kill him!" Tae-su had seen this type many times. He was very calm. Then he calmly dealt with them one by one. It was the first time Shinjua had seen such a master. She stared without blinking, her mouth agape. A moment later, his axe was covered in strawberry syrup. 5 men in prison uniforms lay scattered on the ground. None of them unscathed. Tae-su said, "I accidentally killed the last 2. I'm on the verge of going crazy, so I can't control myself." He announced that he would now conduct an in-depth interrogation of each person, including Shinjua. Tae-su was truly terrifying now, more so than the ghouls. He picked up a carrot-like object and said in a low voice, "Let's cooperate a little. Shall we?" Tae-su first wanted to say that he could tell who was lying. Torture would make it even easier to find out. If they lied or showed any signs of wasting his time, Tae-su declared he would kill them immediately. This made the 4 survivors feel like they were sitting on pins and needles. Among them, 2 were already dead. The fact that these people were taken out made them even more panicked. The man with the severed arm yelled loudly, "We're going to die anyway. What do you want?" Tae-su called them all out. The first one tried to pull a knife. The second one's lie was obvious. He repeated, "I told you. If you waste my time, you will die." Did you think I was joking? The man with the severed arm was extremely tense. He decided to take a risk and grab the carrot-like object nearby. Even with only one hand, he wanted to charge forward and fight. As a result, Tae-su moved with agility. In a flash, the man couldn't see Tae-su's figure at all. All he could see in front of him were the splatters of his own blood, and he collapsed. The only one left standing was Tae-su. He turned to Shinjua and praised her for doing well. Because she was the one who hadn't made a move. Shinjua trembled. This man was no different from her captain. Tae-su took out his daughter's picture and said he was looking for her. He asked if she had seen her. Shinjua looked at the picture and realized it was the child she had taken. Nabi. That child was the daughter of this terrifying man. She hesitated, not knowing how to begin. Then an idea came to her. She would use Tae-su's strength to save her own sister. Gon-woo. Facing this man, she didn't know how to say it in a way that made sense. Shinjua remained silent, thinking of the right way to start. Tae-su put the picture away. He said he could hear her calculating in her head. Just by looking at her expression, he said it plainly. From what I found, a group of women using steel balls took Nabi. He pointed to Shinjua's bag. Certain that there were steel balls inside, Tae-su immediately grabbed her by the throat. He demanded, "Where is my daughter?" His face was close to hers, filled with rage. "Speak." The scene shifts back to the Amazon's child-rearing area. Bokja was bathing the little girls. After many days on the road, Nabi also got her hair washed. It reminded her of bathing with her father. The two of them would happily dry their hair together. On a cool afternoon, the sun shone on the porch. The father and daughter would fall asleep. That moment was so peaceful. Nabi missed her father again. But now, Nabi had to bathe with many other children. Back where Tae-su was, he finally found out where Nabi was. Shinjua had also told him about the Amazon outlet area. But she didn't know how to rescue her. The entire outlet area was guarded 24/7. As soon as an enemy was detected, the alarm would sound, and armed forces would swarm out. Shinjua made it clear that Tae-su's idea of breaking through all the defenses to save his daughter was impossible. Tae-su said, "Let me worry about that." Shinjua insisted that she could help him. She had no chance of going back now. So she would tell him everything. Gon-woo, the child who was also trapped at the outlet, was Shinjua's younger sibling? In fact, a truth that the two siblings had hidden for a long time, just to keep the child alive. Gon-woo was a boy, which meant he had to dress up as a girl every day and keep his hair long. At first, she heard that the Amazons were a safe place for women only, so she disguised her younger brother as a girl. She thought that at least it would be safer there than outside. But the Amazons were not a safe zone for women, but a place that would kill all men. Shinjua recounted how her brother didn't dare to use the bathroom for fear of being discovered, didn't dare to bathe, and couldn't sleep properly. They had also tried to escape, but they weren't allowed to leave, and they couldn't reveal that he was a boy. That was why Shinjua wanted to beg Tae-su for help. She said that their goals were the same. If he didn't believe her, he could torture her. She gave him two choices: trust her and get help, or recklessly charge in alone and die. Tae-su was an expert at reading people when they lied. Their eyes, nose, and mouth would all show signs. He said he didn't need to torture her. He could see that what she was saying was true. But it still wasn't 100% guaranteed. He didn't want to gamble with his daughter's life. That night at the house, Tae-su had locked Shinjua in here. He had knocked her out and tied her up. She had just woken up. Shinjua didn't know how much time had passed and wanted to leave immediately to save her brother. She thought that while Tae-su was causing a distraction, she would rescue her brother. Over where Tae-su was, he looked up at a constellation in the sky. He remembered his little Nabi saying that constellation looked like a butterfly. He also saw that constellation, it really did look like one, and the father and daughter had made a pact to call that constellation the Nabi constellation from then on. Looking up at the sky, he missed his daughter again. To him, no matter how dark the path to her was, no matter how dangerous the obstacles, it didn't matter. "Wait for me, Nabi. Dad is coming." And Tae-su decided to go in there alone to get his daughter out. In the forest, a man was running in fear. What on earth did those scars do? He had to report it immediately. He ran as fast as he could. If he didn't, everyone would die. But before he could make it back, someone struck. A splash of ketchup erupted. The forest echoed with the young man's blood-curdling screams. A set of razor-sharp teeth, dripping with fresh blood. Emerged from the pitch-black night. Scene shifts to the Amazon outlet. Tae-su had arrived. He noticed a brightly lit room. Inside, two people were talking. Tae-su was down below. He began his infiltration. He vaulted over the barbed wire fence. But these guys had scattered broken glass and beer cans all over the ground below. Tae-su landed on his fingertips, making absolutely no sound. He flawlessly held a handstand and slowly lowered himself to the ground. Tae-su gathered his momentum and sprang up. Then, he lightly leaped over. This was child's play for him. Nearby, a guard walking up the stairs grumbled. Am I going to be stuck doing this my whole life? Yawning sleepily. She didn't even notice Tae-su's hand creeping up behind her. In a flash, Tae-su clamped his hand over her mouth. He whispered into her ear. Answer my questions immediately. Lie to me. And you die right here. He asked where the orphanage was, trembling. She raised her hand and pointing straight toward the nursery. But Tae-su knocked her out anyway. He didn't want to kill innocent people. By the time she woke up, everything would be over. The woman collapsed on the steps. Tae-su glanced toward the nursery. He sprinted as fast as he could, dodging the guard's line of sight. A female guard noticed a noise nearby, but Tae-su had already successfully slipped inside. He stepped in slowly, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness. Tae-su searched every nook and cranny for his daughter. He noticed a room further inside, decorated like a kindergarten classroom. Tae-su reached out for the door. He stepped inside and closed it. Bokja was still awake, a cigarette dangling from her lips as she complained about her old age and insomnia. Sensing an intruder, she snapped her book shut. Bokja turned around and asked, Only women live here. What's a man doing in a place like this? She asked Tae-su. Are you Scar? He replied that he was here for his daughter. Turn a blind eye, and I'll take her and leave quietly. She scoffed. Then she asked where he planned to take her. Is there anywhere safe out there? If there was, she wouldn't be here in the first place. She pulled out a gun and flatly refused. There's no place safer than here. So, she's not leaving. The moment any child steps foot in here, they become mine. And you wouldn't push your own kid to their death, would you? Tae-su's eyes widened. She actually pulled the trigger. But he managed to dodge. Tae-su scrambled for cover to avoid her barrage of bullets. Hearing the gunshots, the base immediately mobilized its forces. Bokja alerted everyone over the comms. Get to the nursery. Now, a man has broken in. A massive force was instantly dispatched. Tae-su quickly bolted up the stairs. Nabi woke up at that moment, calling out, Grandma. She opened the door and peeked out. What's going on? The old woman turned to look at the little girl. Then she said gently, It's nothing. Dear? Go back to sleep. It's late. Meanwhile, Tae-su fled to the roof. A projectile came hurtling toward his back. Two women appeared, one armed with a slingshot and steel marbles, the other with a dagger. Tae-su drew his own weapon. The red-haired woman climbed up and closed in on him, then suddenly ducked. Tae-su didn't understand why she did that. Little did he know, it was a coordinated tactic. She ducked, so the steel marble could shoot straight at him. He gripped his knife tightly. Tae-su was so fast that he deflected the incoming marble with the very tip of his blade. But it wasn't over yet. The other woman recklessly lunged forward for the kill. She slashed at him, and Tae-su leaned back to dodge. Another marble shot toward him. The slingshot user was incredibly strong. Tae-su had to fend off the blade while dodging the projectiles. The red-haired woman was relentless. Realizing their lightning-fast teamwork, Tae-su began to focus. The red-haired woman charged again, but suddenly, she froze in shock. Tae-su threw a high knee strike, warning her, knock it off. His knee smashed squarely into her face. Another steel marble flew at him, but it missed. The other woman couldn't fathom how he had so skillfully read their rhythm. This tactic was something only the two red-haired girls could pull off, as they were twins. Yet, in that split second, Tae-su managed to dodge both of them and launch a counterattack. Her twin sister was injured from the blow. Tae-su's fist came flying next. In that moment, they couldn't believe this was human strength. Both twins were taken down and knocked out cold. The commotion from the gunfire caused the floodlights to turn on, sweeping the area for Tae-su. He had been spotted. A squad of women appeared right in front of him. One of them ordered, "Take him alive if possible. It was their captain. She declared. If he resists to the end, kill him. On the rooftop, Tae-su was facing off against a mob of female assassins. He observed his surroundings first. Suddenly, he bent his knees. Tae-su leaped off the edge, intending to escape. The captain drew her bow. She perfectly tracked his movements. She released the bowstring. The arrow shot straight toward the fleeing Tae-su. He glanced back and saw the arrow about to hit him. Mid-air, Tae-su twisted his body to dodge. She hadn't expected him to be so agile. Tae-su managed to escape the perimeter. For the first time, a formidable enemy had left the Amazon group completely helpless. She barked orders. Split into 2 teams. Team 1. Scour every inch of the forest. Team 2. Stay here and guard the perimeter. She gritted her teeth. Do not let him get away. Shinjua was visibly panicking. She had also arrived, never expecting Tae-su to be crazy enough to infiltrate this place alone. While they were busy hunting him down, she saw this as her chance. She figured she could use the chaos to sneak into the nursery and break Gonwoo out. The outlet mobilized a massive force to hunt down Tae-su. They were determined to leave no stone unturned. Leading the search party was a blonde woman with high cheekbones. Somewhere in the forest, Tae-su's silhouette dashed through the trees. He landed on the ground. He carefully scanned his surroundings. And yet, they still managed to spot him. The blonde leader stepped forward and asked, You said you came here looking for your daughter. Right. Instead of facing us head-on, I figured you'd head straight for your target. Tae-su genuinely didn't want to kill them, knowing they only wanted to protect the girl. But he had no other choice, and the other side had no intention of letting Nabi go. She declared war. Swinging her sword, she charged at Tae-su. He stood his ground and simply tilted his head. In return, he swung his axe at her. It wasn't going to end that easily. She swiftly dodged it. Then, she readied herself for another thrust. She lunged forward with practiced skill. Tae-su stayed cautious. One look, and he knew she was a pro. She stepped back and lowered her sword. Striding forward confidently, she smirked at Tae-su. Not bad. A second slower and you'd have a hole in your face. Scene shifts to the nursery, where Bokja was still guarding the children. Shinjua walked right in. She told Bokja she just wanted to see her little sister for a moment before leaving, but the old woman refused. So Shinjua made her move. She lunged forward and grabbed the old woman by the throat. She reached into Bokja's pocket and snatched her revolver. Bokja grimaced. What the hell are you doing? Shinjua replied. Just stay put. I don't want to hurt you. Then, Shinjua yelled. Gonwoo. Come out here right now. The little boy immediately opened the door. He saw his sister pinning down Grandma Bokja. She told Gonwoo to check if the coast was clear. They needed to get out of there. The boy wanted to leave. But this was all too sudden. He quickly ran out to check for guards, just as his sister asked. Out of nowhere, Bokja asked, What is Gaeon's real name? The siblings froze. She continued. Not the name he uses as a girl, but his real name as a boy. It turned out Bokja had known all along, but she hadn't told anyone. Shinjua asked why she had pretended not to know until now. Bokja replied that anyone who came here was her grandchild. And besides, there was no escaping this place anyway, so don't waste your breath. Shinjua told her brother that half their forces were outside, so they only had to deal with the 2 guards at the door. She then aimed the gun right at Bokja's face. The old woman scolded her. Why can't you and that man think things through? If you leave this place, where else is there to go? You'll either die or live in hell. Shinjua fell silent at those words. Gonwoo heard it too, and he understood exactly what Bokja meant. She advised them to stay, promising to keep Gonwoo's gender a secret. Bokja said it was her final act of care for him. As a mother figure, a dangerous projectile came flying, back with Tae-su. He smoothly tilted his head to dodge it. The blonde woman roared in frustration. When are you going to stop running? Gripping her sword, she lunged forward like a professional fencer. The tip of the blade thrust straight at Tae-su, backed against a large tree. He caught the sharp blade with his bare hands. He gripped it tightly. Then, he slammed the blade downward with brutal force. Tae-su's hammer shattered the blonde woman's sword into pieces. The others rushed up from behind to check on her. Furious, she finally realized Tae-su's plan. So you were just dodging to lure us in. Tae-su didn't want to waste his breath. He said bluntly, "I don't have time for this. Come at me all at once. Somewhere else." A mutant ghoul with 4 scrawny limbs appeared. It was near the outlet area, and now it was making its way down there. It let out an ear-piercing screech, its bloodthirsty maw gaping wide. 2 girls were standing guard at the outlet. The superior officer suspected that tonight's massive commotion might attract mutant ghouls. Just as she said that, the blonde girl froze in shock. She heard the sound of dripping blood and looked back. Crimson drops were splattered across the ground. The monitor in front of her flickered wildly. A few drops of fresh blood dripped onto her face. Her superior had been attacked by a mutated ghoul. It let out a deafening screech, its mouth smeared with blood after devouring the woman. At the daycare area, Gonwoo and Shinjua heard the alarm. They panicked. Shinjua knew something bad was about to happen. Madame Bokja said, "1 alarm means an intruder. 2 means an infected. And 3 means..." The scene then shifts to Tae-su, who, along with his group, also heard the siren. He was told by the others that it was the siren warning of a demon. Now, the blonde woman's focus shifted to the imminent danger facing the entire base. The infected are born from human desires. The sheer will to live can slow down the mutation process. But when the desire for revenge and murderous intent take over, they mutate into something far more hideous than the infected, a demon. And that demon had just slaughtered someone in a matter of seconds. It clung to the wall, savoring its delicious prey. Blood spilled everywhere as it exhaled a foul, metallic stench. The demon crawled up to the window, the female captain inside, along with the remaining people at the outlet, rallied their forces to fight back. A demon had appeared a few months ago, cutting their numbers in half. If they slipped up this time, they could be completely wiped out. And right now, the blonde realized there was no time for infighting. This meant Tae-su's daughter was also being threatened by the demon. Nabi and the other children needed to be protected. Over at the outlet, the demon leaped up. The people below tracked its movements. It landed with a heavy thud, shaking the entire area. The moment its grotesque feet hit the ground, it snatched someone up. An arrow shot right through its forehead. The captain was the one who fired, standing on high ground facing the demon. They then unleashed a barrage of arrows at the demon, but none hit its eyes, nose, or mouth. This only infuriated it further. The demon let out a deafening roar. The captain realized that wasn't nearly enough damage. Her subordinates quickly fled, retreating up the stairs. Spotting them, the demon lunged forward, swinging its arms and smashing the surrounding structure. It scrambled up the stairs, chasing after them. A girl ran up and grabbed a rope. She yanked it hard. A giant net suspended right above the demon dropped, catching it perfectly in the trap. The net engulfed the demon, and it thrashed around like a crab caught in a trap. The group immediately surrounded it, and under the captain's orders, they aimed and fired at its head. Bullets rained down on the exact same spot, torturing the demon. However, its flesh was incredibly tough. Despite the relentless gunfire, it seemed completely unfazed. It even managed to surge forward and tear through the net with terrifying speed. While the others kept firing wildly, panic was clearly written all over the captain's face. Meanwhile, Tae-su had infiltrated the area once again. This time, he wasn't just up against the people here, but a demon as well. His first priority was finding his daughter. Tae-su opened the door and stepped inside. The children's sleeping area had been completely evacuated. Only blankets and pillows remained. But no one was there. Tae-su checked the surroundings. The dining and living areas were also empty. Anxious, he guessed that the people here must have evacuated all the kids. Back at the demon's location, it was still being bombarded with gunfire. After a while of their weapons doing nothing, the captain started to grow anxious. The demon's arm trembled as it raised it. It roared again, ready to pounce. It had taken an insane amount of damage, yet it still wasn't dead. The captain couldn't believe it. Its head was clearly mangled. So why the hell wasn't it dead yet? Just then, Tae-su walked up, gripping his axe. The demon's one functioning eye locked onto him. Tae-su dashed forward like a blur. The demon lunged at him, and he charged right back, swinging his axe. Tae-su ducked and delivered a vicious slash. Knowing the weakness of these creatures, He spun his axe and struck the exact spot to easily shatter its skull. The demon was left reeling from the crushing blow. Tae-su planted his feet firmly. Standing in the middle of the courtyard, he screamed his daughter's name. Nabi. Inside a small room, the children had been gathered. Shinjua and Madame Bokja were there as well. Nabi heard her father's voice. She froze and turned around. At that moment, the demon was dead set on finishing Tae-su off. Its arm twitched, then it launched a lightning-fast attack at him, shoving its hideous face right at him. Tae-su turned to look. He felt a familiar sensation, the very feeling he thought had died during his 10 years living in the forest. Now, it was slowly coming back to life. His heart pounded, his breathing grew shallow. He thought he had forgotten, but his body always remembered the reason he was born. Tae-su charged forward fiercely, clashing with the demon and striking fear into everyone watching. It was eager to wipe him out. Tae-su expertly slid between its legs. He swung his axe with all his might, aiming for the demon's vulnerable knee joint. He hacked into it. It lost its footing, staggering as if about to fall. Seizing the opportunity, Tae-su delivered another brutal chop. With both knees shattered, the demon collapsed to the ground. It let out an agonizing shriek, its fang-filled face turning to glare at him. Tae-su kept swinging his axe. He targeted its weak points. Then he smashed it relentlessly. Simply because he had a wealth of experience dealing with these monsters. The demon's face contorted as it howled in agony. Even the captain was horrified. The people behind her asked if this made any sense. They had never seen anything as terrifying as that man. He looked human on the outside, but his strength was anything but. What the hell was he? At that moment, Tae-su looked up at the crowd. The captain drew her bow. She planned to take Tae-su out the exact second he killed the demon. Her fear was that if she didn't eliminate him, he would wipe out everyone here sooner or later. The sharp edge of the axe dug deep into the demon's flesh. Tae-su gripped it tightly and vaulted himself up. He flipped over toward its back, while the axe remained firmly embedded in the demon's front limb. Using the momentum, the axe tore through its flesh, mangling it even further. It carved out a gaping wound like a crater. Tae-su landed safely on the ground. For this demon, simply crippling its weak limbs was enough to immobilize it. The group wondered why Tae-su was fighting the demon for them. He could have just waited until they exhausted themselves fighting it before showing up. Why strike first? Realizing this, the captain froze. In Tae-su's eyes, there was only saving his daughter. There was no logic, no fear, no allies. To him, it was simply about destroying anything standing in his way. And he had only one goal, to find his child. Tae-su frantically butchered the demon, using his axe to hack it into pieces, blood splattering all over him. The captain understood this too. She let out a hollow laugh, but her face was pale with fear. To this captain, the outlet was everything. The people who had sacrificed their lives here, the dark past, and the children, all of it could soon be destroyed by Tae-su. Tae-su was still slaughtering the demon. He kept smashing until he found what he was looking for. Finally, the tiny brain hidden deep within that rock-hard skull was exposed. The last step was to destroy it so the demon would die for good. He swung his axe. He brought it down hard on the pulsing, foul-smelling brain, crushing it like mashed tofu. Tae-su had officially taken down the demon, the terror of Amazon, and stood triumphantly on its head. The captain prepared to shoot Tae-su. Tae-su also knew that his next battle would be against that group. The blonde whispered to the captain, "Men must be killed. That's our law. You haven't forgotten, have you?" In that moment, the captain hesitated. The blonde urged her on. "Captain, focus." At the daycare, hearing her father's voice, Nabi ran off to find him, with Madame Bokja chasing after her, even though she was told her father was dead. Hearing his voice made her want to run out and see if it was really him. Nabi was absolutely certain that voice belonged to her dad. At this moment, memories with his daughter flashed through his mind. The time Nabi met that stranger, Tae-su had almost died. Even though he had caught Sihyun, he had carelessly left Nabi home alone. That was his biggest mistake. He never expected the man would try to kill him, too. He went back and took Nabi away. By the time Tae-su made it back, his daughter was gone, and he hadn't stopped searching for her since. His Nabi had heard her father's voice and ran out. She saw her father, alive and well, standing on the demon's back. Tae-su was stunned to see his daughter appear. He never expected Nabi to run all the way out here. The moment she saw him, she ran toward him. After so long apart, tears streamed down her face as she burst out crying. Tae-su couldn't hide his emotions either. He dropped his axe and rushed over, pulling Nabi into a tight embrace. Nabi cried her heart out. She thought she would never see her dad again. But now, he had found her. Madame Bokja and Shinjua slowly walked over. Shinjua knew she had no chance of escaping anymore. Shinjua told Madame Bokja that Gaeon's real name was Gonwoo, and she hoped they would take care of the boy from now on. Madame Bokja flicked her lighter. She put a cigarette in her mouth, watching Tae-su and his daughter hug. She scoffed. Take care of what? Now that he was reunited with his daughter, Tae-su had to protect Nabi and face off against the women here. Tae-su told Nabi to stay close to him at all times. He glared fiercely at the crowd. Then he said bluntly, I don't care who you kill or what messed up things you do. All I care about is my daughter. I'm just taking her and leaving. That's it. He added. If you have a problem with that, then anyone who wants a piece of me, come get it. The captain stared at Tae-su in deep thought. Tae-su swore in front of the crowd. Before I die, I'll slaughter every last one of you. Tae-su's eyes snapped open. He wasn't fighting those people. He was lying in bed. He quickly sat up and threw the blanket aside. The spot next to him was empty. His daughter wasn't there. Tae-su frantically rushed out to find her. He made his way to the daycare room. Tense, Tae-su scanned the room for his daughter. Nabi was playing happily with the other kids. In fact, she looked incredibly happy, flashing back to a month ago, when he said that if anyone wanted to fight him, he'd take them on. The captain didn't say a word, just giving him a strange look. Tae-su had sworn that before he died, he would wipe them all out. The captain didn't really want things to go that way. She intended to cooperate. After all, in this world, if you don't kill others, they'll kill you. But if they work together, things would be much better. The captain laid it out straight. Their forces here were weakening by the day. She wanted Tae-su to help protect the outlet. In exchange, she would let him and his daughter live here. Hearing this, the blonde was visibly annoyed. Tae-su never expected things to turn out like this. The captain admitted the truth. She originally planned to kill him, but seeing him fight changed her mind. Not everyone possessed Tae-su's strength. Keeping him alive was far more beneficial than killing him. That was also why they didn't attack Tae-su while he was fighting the demon. It was also for the safety of the children. The kids were the future resources of Amazon, so there was no reason to harm them. They were kept away from danger, educated, and given a safe environment. You can ask your daughter to confirm it, she said. Nabi stared with wide eyes. The captain wanted to hear Tae-su's decision. What do you say? We can give each other exactly what we need. Tae-su thought it over. Then he raised his voice and asked, Are you done talking? A minute ago you wanted to kill me, and now you want to team up. Do you have any idea how ridiculous that sounds? Faced with his fury, the atmosphere grew dead silent. The captain lowered her voice. Perhaps you misunderstood me. I'm offering a deal, not begging on my knees. In our current situation, we've even broken our own rules and given up our advantage for the greater good. What more do you want me to do? Terrified by that face, Nabi clung tightly to her father's arm. Tae-su looked at the captain's face and pondered. She wasn't wrong. They both had something the other needed. Even if they left, the only place they could go back to was that shack. And Nabi would have to live that same life all over again. Compared to that, this place had everything. It would probably be better for Nabi here, even if Tae-su were to die. He would feel at peace leaving her here. Tae-su then stated he would stay for 1 month before making a decision. During that time, they had to guarantee him a room to live in with his daughter and the freedom to carry his weapons. Otherwise, the deal was off. This condition clearly annoyed the blonde, but the captain agreed immediately, saying she accepted it as a show of good faith. Even if Tae-su wanted to leave after a month, she would let him go unconditionally as a reward for killing the demon. However, she was confident that after a month, Tae-su would want to stay, because dragging a young child through the hellish outside world was something Tae-su probably understood better than anyone. And now, in the present, Tae-su had agreed to stay. Madame Bokja approached him. I told you. This is the safest place. Was wanting to take her outside just your own selfishness? Or were you really thinking about her? Think about it carefully. Early in the morning, Nabi saw her father standing at the door. She called out loudly, "Dad." Then she happily ran over and threw her arms around him. Nabi was overjoyed. This was the moment she had dreamed of. And so had Tae-su. At the command room of the Amazon outlet, the promised 1-month deadline had finally arrived. Tae-su went to see the captain. She asked him seriously whether he wanted to leave or stay. The entire room fell silent. Tae-su recounted how he used to live in hiding on the mountain with his daughter, believing it was the best way to protect her. But Tae-su said he realized his mistake. Creating an environment where she could stand on her own 2 feet was far more important than selfishly keeping her all to himself. So, he told her that he didn't care how they wanted to use him. He accepted it, because it was all to protect Nabi and create a safe place for her to live. The captain held out her hand. She also showed goodwill. When our goals align, do the reasons even matter? For the first time, Tae-su was cooperating with strangers and choosing to trust people. He decided to shake her hand. The captain still had one lingering question. Tae-su was nothing like an ordinary person. She asked who he really was. Tae-su went silent for a moment. Then he replied that he was just an ordinary rescue worker. And with that, he left. After seeing him leave, the blonde finally spoke to the captain. "Have you forgotten everything we suffered at the hands of those scars, bringing a man in here?" She argued. "As long as we hold his daughter hostage. He's nothing but a pawn we can use and throw away whenever we want. We just need to use that to fight fire with fire. If he fights for us, great. If he dies, who cares?" The blonde fell silent. She stared at a skull with a needle pierced through its eye socket and asked, "Or is it because of your guilt over your own daughter?" The captain looked at her scarred face reflected in the glass. The blonde remained deeply cynical. "In this world, men are no different from wild beasts. He's holding it in now. But sooner or later, he'll snap. Kill the men. To save the women. That rule is what built Amazon. The moment we make an exception, it all becomes meaningless." She turned on her heel. The blonde stated her intentions to the captain. "I'm sorry, but I can't wait any longer." The scene shifts to another location. An infected was tied up. The infected was surrounded by a group of people. One of the men in the group kicked it hard. He smirked. Then he glanced at a nearby trash can. They had killed this man's lover and were disappointed that he hadn't mutated into a demon from the trauma of losing her. He yanked a carrot that was stuck in the infected's head out. Then he used his shirt to wipe off the blood. This guy was a scar. He turned around and ordered them to bring the next test subject. Just one more success, and Amazon is finished.